Okay, if you see us, just don't flip out, alright? Because I love you, and I'm sorry. We doing stuff. It sucks. I hate encoding, which is why I never used it, which is why I hate YouTube, and I hope something happens to those niggas.
I think all the streaming uses encoders.
Could you not?
I love you.
Could you just not? Could you say, hey baby, you know what? We gonna get through this, because I love you.
Hey baby, we're gonna get through this, because I love you.
And what I'm not gonna do is sit here and contradict you.
Never. I would never do such a thing.
Because I know that you're having a real tough time right now.
Mm-hmm.
According to this, we live.
Nope. Let me check my phone for that. Oh yeah, well, it just says Lady Columbia live stream. It's not the Leftist Couch.
Well, we'll fix that in post.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. Let me, bear with us, guys. We need to announce this stream now. We are having a lot of technical difficulties. We've never streamed on the Lady Columbia's computer before like this.
We're doing fancy shit, y'all, and when you do fancy shit, you get technical difficulties. And let me make sure I spell difficulties correctly. I did. So what you will do is excuse me. I love y'all, and we gonna get through this.
Mm-hmm.
We gonna get through this. We gonna add some shit. We gonna do some shit. All right. We gonna hear some neighbors. Might hear some yelling. It's gonna be fine.
Share that. Copy link. Deep.
All right. He's doing. We're announcing the stream, y'all. So just give us a minute. I love y'all. We're gonna let the room fill up a second. It took us 10 whole minutes, but we did that.
All right, there we go. I've announced it.
We announced.
Did you announce it?
No, because I'm over here clicking buttons.
Okay.
But we gonna do that. Hold on.
You just retweet mine. Yeah. I don't get a live shot.
Okay, well, you gotta say some stuff.
Hi guys.
Tell them how much you like pizza.
I like pizza, boobs, and lots of other things. Hey everybody, Great Pirate Solomon here.
Would you not?
And we are here with you for the first episode of The Leftist Couch.
I thought you were doing it for funsies.
Nope.
Alright, it's retweeted. Alright. Hello everyone, it's your girl Columbia. How are you? I'm fine. Let's get into it.
Indeed. So, this is our new political discussion show, podcasty type thing.
It's not a podcast if we're on camera, dude.
Whatever. Some podcasts are on camera. The Joe Rogan Experience is a podcast that he puts on YouTube.
But he's not. There's no... I'm done.
Anyways. So, we're going to be playing with the format as we go along. Some episodes will be live, some will be recorded. In the future, we will probably have guests.
We will not, because after this, we're going to burn everything to the ground.
But today, we're coming to you live. We're coming to you on the Lady Columbia's channel. That will be something that also switches up.
Yeah. So we're probably like,
alternate.
We're alternate between our channels, so, he gets some views, I get some views, it's whatever.
The Lady Columbia wore her crown today, and I decided to don my pirate hat.
Now, tell us in the comments who looks less ridiculous, because I know it's me.
Obviously this guy.
And
I was going to shave my beard into the configuration that you see in my logo, but somebody vetoed that plan.
I control all his facial hair plans, and that's not happening.
Pretty much everything. My wardrobe.
That's not true. That's so not true.
Shirt. She picked it out.
I bought the shirt for him, but it's not like I'm like, oh, you can't wear this or you can't wear that. The only thing I ever go yay or nay about is your wardrobe, my dude.
And my facial hair.
Oh, it's your facial hair. Sorry, not his wardrobe. Whatever.
So yeah. Should we start off with a little introduction about us, where we come from?
Where we come from, nigga? I came from space.
I meant like where we come from politically and whatnot.
Yeah, whatevs. You start.
All right. Well,
you're a guest on my channel.
Indeed, I am. So I am known on the interwebs as the Great Pirate Solomon, or just Great Pirate Solomon, I suppose. I've been making content, I guess, for about 4 years now, mostly video game content. A few random political videos here and there. But
I'm looking for a place for the mouse. Yeah.
I see. Before I started creating content, I was fairly active as a non-content creator. We're having all sorts of technical difficulties.
You shut up.
I was active as a commenter and viewer, and sometimes call in to different shows, live shows on YouTube in the so-called atheist and skeptic community. There we go. So I was big into that back in the day. And then, back around 2012, 2013, when the great atheist schism happened.
That's what we're calling the split, as I like to call it.
Yes. Between the SJWs and the anti-SJWs. I
did you fence it?
I did fence it. I never went full shitlord. I was never a full anti-SJW, but I did fence it. I was always a leftist, but I would still because I was fans of a lot of people who went more to the shitlord side. I would be like, well, they make a couple okay points here and there, I guess, but that was the thing was I didn't really at the time I didn't know a lot about, say, feminist philosophy or feminist academia.
Feminism.
Sure. The more
feminist theory.
Yes, there you go. Boom. That's what I was looking for. Didn't really know what I had never heard of intersectionalism, anything like that. So at the time I was, fairly ignorant on these topics, and so a lot of times when you see someone who is using the lingo and the buzzwords of such things and you don't understand them, it can seem weird to you if you're not already inculcated into the jargon. So I would
especially in terms of, and I'm going to cut you off, especially in terms of the relationship between a content creator and someone who watches their content, because this relationship that we all have is way more intimate than the relationship that you have to someone who you're watching on television. So when you see someone that you fuck with and they're using jargon, or they're talking kind of in speak about a subject that you're not super familiar with, you might be more likely to just be like, do I fuck with you?
Well, apparently you look less ridiculous, baby.
That's my boy. How is my Bimba Dick Cumbersnatch? Mwah. Hi, baby.
I will be taking this hat off soon enough, but
yeah, the crown stays on though.
The crown stays on.
The crown stays on.
But
continue, my love.
So I came from that world, and then as I, it did take a sort of a waking up point, and that was actually, we can thank Thunderfoot for waking me up. By being a total douchebag, in an episode of the Magic Sandwich Show, which was one of my favorite live shows back in the day, and he just went off the fucking rails talking to a couple feminists, and he just sounded like a complete moron, and I was like, I can't fence it anymore. This is just ridiculous. And this is going back a ways. This is probably 2013, 2014 at the latest. So, I mean, it's, I've been squarely on this side of the fence for quite some time. But my actual politics never changed either. Like, it was just my understanding of social issues, I guess
Gotcha.
you could say. But so I've been here for the whole time, basically. And then as I became less invested in a lot of the atheist and skeptic stuff, right? I started finding more leftist content and social justice activist content. As far as my actual politics, not always the biggest fan of labels, but most likely I would fall. Again, we're calling this the Leftist Couch, but some leftists would probably say that we're not actually leftists.
And they can go fuck themselves.
Indeed. There a lot of the far left. As when I say the far left, I mean like legit communists, Marxist-Leninists, tankies, stuff like that. Will tell you that you have to be specifically anti-capitalist to be a leftist. Which I guess there's some argument for that, but as far as I'm concerned, if you're left of center, you're a leftist. So to them, a leftist is basically maybe a democratic socialist, and then everything further left than that. To me, a leftist, probably starts with progressive Democrats, I guess, maybe. Because I guess I would look at like moderate mainstream Democrats as like the center. And that's obviously couched in U.S. politics, so if you're in the U.K., you can take your own guesses on how that would shake out for you, but I would, generally consider myself a social democrat, maybe bordering on democratic socialism, so somewhere in that neck of the woods. Your turn, doll.
So y'all know me. I have always you picked that moment to take the damn hat off.
I sure did.
I've always held the belief since I was very little that government is an apparatus that should do its best to take care of its people. So, point blank, that's always been like how I felt about it. And as I got older, that evolved into, well, what mechanism and what sort of ideologies lean closest to that? I try not to put a label on myself politically, because there are things that I would say I agree with certain ideologies about. There are things I disagree with certain ideologies about, from left to right. I think that there are even things that conservatives believe that I would say, that's not terrible, right? So if you're a fiscal conservative, for example, right, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with the idea that a government should be paying for as much of its policy as is humanly possible and financing as little as is humanly possible. I would agree with socialists in that capitalism does not go far enough as an economic system and cannot take care of all of our human needs, right? But I don't like the idea of labels, because then we get into that, what you were talking about later, which is, well, you're not really a socialist and you're not really this. And as far as I'm concerned, all of that discussion distracts from the cause, right? In my mind, there's only one cause. There is the cause is the abolition of all forms of bias that include classism, sexism, racism, etc. Any of those petty arguments, you can have those after we've achieved power and after we're the ones in control. But to sit around and to argue about who's really a socialist and who really isn't, those are people who don't understand ideology, economics, and they don't want to have real conversations about it. They want to sit around and argue about who's what and what's what. And I ain't got time for all that shit. As you can see, I'm black as fuck. I ain't got time for that. Black people don't have time for that. People of color ain't got time for that. Indigenous people ain't got time for that. The only motherfuckers on this planet got time for that are middle-class white people.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. That'll be kind of segued into some other stuff. I tend to look at it from a point of view that I'm certainly not pro-capitalism, and I'm certainly not a staunch defender of capitalism, but I'm not necessarily sold on the idea that we need to smash capitalism right now, because
same.
Nobody really has a good plan for what comes.
Fuck no, they don't.
I mean, a lot of people will tell you they have a good plan, but
yeah, but then they start to explain and the shit sounds horrible.
Right. And like, that's never how a transition between economic structures has worked. It's never been like, oh, we're going to literally like destroy the economy and start over. It's these things transition from one to another. Like, you can't really find the point in time when mercantilism became capitalism. You can't find the point in time where feudalism became mercantilism. Like, that's not how this works. Things transition. Capitalism, like, you can read Marx and you can look at his critiques of capitalism and say, yeah, most of those are pretty spot on. Not all of them, but most of them are pretty spot on. Now, as far as what he wants to replace that with, that might have worked fine in 1870. I don't think it would work fine now.
Well,
the economy's different. Like, we're not all working in factories anymore.
Agreed. I think that, and you said it very well. One, not only do we not have anything to replace it with, but I don't want that transition. One thing too is, to kind of add to that is, I don't want that transition to be horrific. Right? You destroy an economic system, you're leaving billions of people absolutely with nothing. And you're throwing them into the most chaotic situation you possibly could. And you're hoping you'll be the one to control the economy. You'll be the one to control enough resources to build the next economic system. But that's kind of a hope.
And who will be the most harmed by that? It won't be the capitalists. They'll be cushioned from this. It won't be the upper middle class. It won't be the rich. It will be the marginalized and the poor. That's who will suffer the most if you just destroy the economy.
Right.
Now, you might say in the long run it's better, but like, how long is that long run?
And in that period of time, you'll have built so much resentment that ain't nobody gonna side with you.
And the other reason I don't think it's necessarily like incumbent upon us to destroy capitalism in like that sort of way is because I think capitalism is unsustainable. I think it's going to destroy itself by transitioning into something else because it has to, especially in our current climate, with automation, with shit like that. It can't sustain itself. Like, so eventually, I believe, I could be wrong, I'm not an economist, but I believe that it will eventually phase itself out, just as all economic systems have.
Well, what?
And I don't think it's like in the far off future either. I think it's soonish.
I think within, if not within our lifetimes, then certainly in the next 75 to 100 years, capitalism's over with. It's done. We're not doing that anymore. But ultimately, the issue becomes one issue for me in terms of the smash capitalism now is I don't think it's fair to future generations who are going to have an entirely different quality of life than we do right now. I don't know that it's fair to them to decide what they should have. I think that transition should be as organic as possible, because then it will be able to accommodate what their living situations are like, and it'll be more malleable for them. I think that the job of people living today is to create the conditions for capitalism's failure and allow people in the future to decide, okay, we should be doing a combination of this, that, and the other in order to achieve whatever economic goals we're attempting to achieve. at this point, excuse me, conservation is one of those goals. I think that an economic system that prioritizes the conservation of resources over the exploitation of resources is going to be what's more valued than anything else. I think that an economic system that values people's lives and ensuring that people who have been in the past historically discriminated against, people who are disabled, people who are in need the most, are the ones who are taken care of first.
Joe Bonar has to say, but the market will create new jobs, innovation.
That was cute. I think that one question I think it's important for leftists to answer very straight up and in very economic and very basic economic terms is, do you want a market economy, a command economy, or a mixed economy? Mm-hmm. Which of those are we talking about? Because a lot of times leftists get caught up in theory concerning, I want the workers to own, but we're not talking about basic economics. So, one thing I think is important for leftists, particularly in the next 5 to 10 years, and particularly here on the internet, is what does supply and demand look like in a socialist system? What do basic economic concepts, what's competitive advantage like? What's comparative advantage like? What do these economic principles that are not isolated to capitalism, that flow within all economic systems, what do they look like? How do they function? How does it work? Under your form, under anarcho-communism, communism, socialism, democratic socialism, market socialism, whatever.
Mm-hmm. I think certainly in the short term we're working towards market socialism.
Definitely.
Could that change at some point in the future? Absolutely. I mean, what you doing there, baby girl? No, I'm alone. What do I do? Help me.
No, I saw the reflection of the book and thought it was liquid.
All right. Thought it was like the T-1000 coming here to kill us.
No, I just thought, because I hear what I think is like water on the outside.
That's a reference.
This is why I don't like making content with him.
She loves making content with me.
Anyways, continue, sorry.
No, that was basically all I had to say. I don't know. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I'm a person, like with my ideas about feminism, like with my ideas about a lot of things, I take pieces of what I think works and I apply that.
Sure, pragmatism. Praxis, as the kids say these days.
But I think
which is not necessarily the same as pragmatism, but the combination of theory and practice.
Right. I think that the most important thing that all leftists can do...
Sorry, the combination of theory and practical application.
You done?
Yes, sorry. My bad. Continue, darling. Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I think the most important thing that we can do... I am trying to work! I think the most important thing that we can do is... I've lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry, darling.
Oh, the most important thing that leftists can do right now is work toward the elimination of bias. Because ultimately, every system that we like and every system that we propose, from the most liberal thing you can think of to the most, anarcho-communist, fucking living in a commune naked together and all living in mud and fucking each other. All of that is destroyed the moment you have to deal with racism, or the moment you have to deal with any of our biases.
And that's something we'll get into later also.
So, moving right along.
Boom, boom, boom.
We figured that this is something that, too, we've always kind of wanted to do. Mm-hmm. We've actually literally been planning the show for
over a year.
Yeah.
Maybe longer. I think we talked about doing it while we were still living apart.
We did.
Just doing a hangout or whatever to do it, but never actually materialized.
Right.
And then when we started living together, we were like, we should do it on a couch in front of the computer. And so now it's become the Leftist Couch, which is actually kind of funny because Had I mentioned that name to you before?
No, I don't know.
So you came up with that.
Yeah.
But I had also come up with it. Like, that was gonna... I had 2 suggestions for names, and that was one of them. The other one was the Ice Cold Left. Yeah, it's a reference to our queen. Our other queen.
The hand is up. The hand is up.
Yes, it is. The hand is up. Oops, and I just got peanut butter on my phone.
Should be happening. One reason you guys have to watch this is not just that we're going to piss off. Thank you, Ben, my Dick Cumberbatch. You know what's up. Not only are we going to piss off basically everybody.
Oop, don't forget anarcho-Mormonism.
Uh-oh. I won't. For the 3rd time. Not only are we going to piss off pretty much everyone we know, but
yeah, we're going to piss off a lot of people.
we have our moments where it's just like sheer lunacy, so watch for that. We're just like weird shit will happen and we'll be like, oh my god, hi.
Like, how often does peanut butter get on your phone during a live stream? Who would expect that sort of thing?
I don't know. When Kasha used to do them live streams where she would be like ordering chicken wings and shit, she'd be getting sauce everywhere and we'd be dying.
Yeah, those are good times.
Good times.
Anywho, should we?
Well,
I'm sorry.
I will say this one last thing. So know that we don't make, regardless of what you hear, right? We're not making this because we hate other leftists. We're not making this because we want to, be the ones who beat up on y'all. We're making this because if your ideology can't stand up to the harshest criticism, it can't be implemented, honey. And you would not accept capitalism or capitalists sitting here defending capitalism and not taking any criticism for that.
Boom.
So...
And if your ideology can't stand up to the people who are on your side, then how's it gonna stand up to the people who aren't?
And I'm not here to browbeat anybody. I'm not here to make you see, my opinion is the right opinion. What I'm here to do, if you do nothing else, before you get upset, before you feel personally attacked, because that's not why I'm here. If you feel personally attacked, I'm really sorry about that, honest to goodness.
Are you sure? Because
that depends on who the fuck you are. Because I got plenty of motherfuckers who I feel like are going to feel some type of way, and I feel like that's not... I wouldn't want you to feel some type of way. There are niggas who you gonna know, like, oh, she wants you to feel some type of way.
Boom. So you'll know if she wants you to feel some type of way.
But I want you to first take a minute, reflect, and say, could they be right? Could they be wrong? Because we can be wrong. I'm not infallible. Just because I got a crown on, I'm not
I
sexy.
am, but...
The Patriots suck. So do the Red Sox. Let's continue. So, know that this is about talking through our issues, having fun, you guys being along for that ride, and having some serious discussions. We're going to talk a lot of different topics. We're going to try to do things that are super topical, like on Twitter right now. We're going to try to do things that are long-term political. Definitely going to be some story times. I got if this thing take off, y'all, I got a story time for y'all. Ooh, Lord have mercy. Y'all gonna wish you never seen it. The reason he looked like that, he ain't said a fucking word because he knows exactly what it is. He knows exactly what it is, and all I'm gonna say is you should have never told me that story.
Yeah, she's right.
So, without further ado, as I like to say, let's get into it.
There we go. All right. So our first topic of the day is Mythcon, though it's not actually.
This is like
per se.
This is knockoff Mythcon.
Well, it's associated with Mythcon, and you'll notice a lot of the same names that end up at Mythcon show up. But it's a collaboration between minds the social media platform that attracted a lot of shitlords and Nazis and whatnot. Not as many as Gab, but a good amount. The Free Speech Brigade, let's say. So it's a collaboration between Minds and Mythcon, and I think some other thing that I'd never heard of.
Subvert, something like that? Subverse? I don't know.
But so they're putting on a very similar event to Mythcon in New Jersey, and we thought we'd take a look at some of the attendees. And now, for those who don't know, Mythcon was originally created as a atheist and skeptic event, debunking religion, pseudoscience, all that shit. Now they got people that basically promote pseudoscience going to this bullshit. You know, one of the names on there is, I don't know, how do you pronounce Andy's last name? Do you know? Is it just Andy Go? Is it Andy Nago?
I would just go with Go.
Is it Andy Yo? Because I think sometimes NG makes like a Y sound. I don't know either. But you know the guy. You know the guy that got milkshaked up in, was that in Portland or something?
Girl.
Claims he has a brain hemorrhage. Be from the quick dry cement fucking milkshakes. But yeah, that jack off. Anyways, he's there, and he's one of the attendees, and he is a contributor to Colette, the ridiculous intellectual dark web fucking rag,
right?
That often promotes what Andy likes to call craniometry, but what is actually basically just
phrenology,
a rebranding of phrenology, which is a racialist fucking pseudoscience.
And I like how, so this particular one is about ending racism, violence, authoritarianism, and I don't know all the people on this list, but I don't see, as far as the ones I know, I don't see a black person on this fucking list.
There is at least one.
We got our list down here, y'all, because we can't exactly see them on screen.
Josephine Matthias.
Okay, so a whole-ass black person.
So I believe she's a Candace Owens type. I'm not super familiar with her, but I believe she's...
So we're having a conference with people who are all about the same political ideology.
Apparently it's pronounced no.
It's no. Thank you. Thank you, some random geek. We much appreciate it, darling. Hi, by the way. You've got a whole bunch of people. I mean, Sargon just said white supremacy is a hoax.
Supposedly Brittany Simon is mixed, which is possible. I'm not super familiar with her either.
Even still, there's not enough people who would represent our point of view who are, I mean, the Black Socialists of America could have thrown somebody. They could have got somebody. There are thousands of indigenous organizations across the country that would have got you somebody.
The only legit lefties on the list that I know off the top of my head are Michael Rollins. And there's like one other lady that I wasn't super familiar with, but maybe it was Brittany Simon or Daisy Cousins, or Tara Devlin maybe. One of them is like a seemingly legit, at least left of center, if not lefty. But pretty much everybody else is like, somewhere between a radical centrist and a fucking Nazi. So,
take your fucking... Why the fuck is Count Dankula coming? The man who made his Nazi go Sieg Heil. Why is he coming?
I mean, okay. So,
is he that desperate for something to do?
So let's go through the list from the top. Okay. We've got Lauren Chen,
who we know, right, is alt-right adjacent.
Yes.
All right. She creates the space that allows alt-right people and conservatives to kind of link up and be like, so what's up?
Yeah, he is the shame of Scotland. It's sad. But yeah, so we've got Lauren Chen, as you just explained why she sucks. We got Michael Rollins, who's on our side, friend of the show.
Friend of the show, friend of the channel. Hi, baby.
Daisy Cousins. Maybe I should pull up the actual blurbs.
They didn't have one for Mike, so if Daisy's one of us, she ain't gonna have one.
Yeah, they no. Mike was the only person they didn't have a thing about.
And I wonder
All right.
But here's a blurb for you: musician, activist, heavy into online fucking activism. There, boom. There's your blurb. I just wrote it. Mwah.
You keep talking, baby.
I'm running out of material because I don't know who Daisy Cousins is. Child.
That's not working. Let's try Mythcon.
I know who fucking, but I do know
Actually,
who fucking.
I sent you the link to it, didn't I? I can pull it up from there.
Yup.
Okay. There we go.
I mean, I think one of the most dangerous people, I think this is something that I think lefties share, that kind of sentiment, is one of the most dangerous people is fucking roaming millennial. Because she legitimizes these people who are radical as fuck. Mm-hmm. Who in almost any other time period would have been like, you need to get the fuck out of like conservative or Republican politics. And she just opens the door for them and then goes,
there was a time when Tim Pool kind of occupied a similar position to that, but he's become so much of a lol cow now that it's like nobody.
Yeah, after that bottom text shit, I think it was pretty over for him.
Okay, so I guess we'll not go in order of the list on screen because this list isn't in the same order. But Tara Devlin, she's the one who's seemingly, left of center. She runs the website called RepublicanDirtyTricks.com. Comedian, writer, progressive commentator, unapologetically liberal, whatever that means. Like I said, I don't know her, so, she could be very lefty. She could just be kind of like a progressive Democrat. I don't know. This fella, Graham Elwood, okay, so he is part of the Aggressive Progressives on TYT, which I've never seen. I haven't watched TYT in a long time.
It's been years.
He's also a regular guest on the Jimmy Dore show, and Jimmy Dore, like...
that's gonna be a yikes for me, family.
He has gone off into some... Like, I used to like Jimmy Dore, actually, back in the day when he was on TYT, before he got his own little spin-off show. He always seemed kind of neat, but... once he got that show, he started spinning off into real weird fucking... Like, he's almost like the conspiracy theory left now, and he's got some really kind of really shitty policies and whatnot. But anyway, so I'm going to take that guy with a big grain of salt, because if he's frequently a friend of Jimmy Dore, whatever. All right. So Megan Murphy, Canadian writer, journalist, founder, and editor of the website and blog Feminist Current. She vlogs on a YouTube channel under her own name. I think I've seen her somewhere before. She completed a master's degree in the Department of Gender, Sexuality, and Women's Studies at Simon Fraser University. She is skeptical of rigid ideologies and
I don't like the way that sounds.
Stresses the need for critical thinking when advancing arguments. I want to say that she's turfy. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that, but I seem to remember her being tied to turfiness. So yeah. All right, this Jeff Waldorf fella, host of the Around the Nation with Jeff Waldorf, part of the Young Turks Network. Grew up in...
They really just plumbed from the Young Turks.
Yeah, it seems that way. It's like at least 3 now.
Did we kill off all them fucking granola bars?
I think there's one left.
Okay.
But I don't know where they are. He grew up in Michigan as the son of a working class family.
No, I don't want to hear nobody else. After those debates, I want to hear nobody else's family stories.
His background growing up working poor has informed his blue-collar perspective on issues of workers' rights, healthcare, and politics. So I don't...
Again, but how are these people qualified to talk about ending racism, violence, and authoritarianism?
Yeah, he looks real white. Megan Murphy looks white. Graham Elwood looks white.
We gotta finish this up, y'all, because we got a lot of other segments to go to. We gotta hurry this up, because I'm gonna tell you something. I want fish sticks real bad right now.
Oh. All right, Brittany Simon is the person that said she may be mixed. So she seems definitely on our side. Alternative lifestyle educator focusing on BDSM, polyamorous, and queer relationships.
Good for her.
Helps others balance political, religious, and cultural pressures while trying to live authentically happy lives. So she seems like a legit, leftist on our side.
Oh, I wasn't supposed to do that. They ruined the okay sign, so I can't. I used to do that a lot. But thumbs up, y'all. Thumbs up. Forget I did that. Sorry.
Bill Ottoman is the CEO of Mind, so we just know he sucks. And he's seemingly white. Tim Pool. Tim Pool's mixed.
Mixed with what? Ugly and bad?
Right. But we all know how much Tim Pool sucks, so I won't go into too much detail there. And we're going to be talking about
Why would you
later.
bring Nagras Vodaka? Because I won't say, because he's not Sargon of Akkad. Why would you bring Nagras Vodaka to this?
I like to call him Carlgon of Swindon. So, you know. This is not the first time he's been to Mythcon or Mythcon-related activity. It says he's a skeptic of ideologies, both theological and political.
Nagras Vodaka created a considerable amount of content regarding skeptical thought?
No, he never did.
What?
Back in the day, I used to get recommended Sargon videos back when I was big in the atheist and skeptic community. And people would always recommend me, hey, go watch this Sargon of Akkad guy. And this was before he started his Gamergate shit and got even halfway famous. And all he did was basically history videos. There wasn't any skepticism involved. It was just history videos, and they were boring as fuck and generally wrong.
Right. There was a YouTube channel that I can't remember now who devoted a great deal of time to just destroy, and the guy was like had a master's in ancient Persian and Eurasian history. And just Sargon of Akkad had no idea. I mean, he could have done better just reading Wikipedia articles verbatim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I watched a couple Sargon videos, just as his straight up history videos, and they were terrible. They were wrong. I did a year as a history major in college, so
You listen. If it ain't,
I don't think Sargon has a degree in history.
Sargon ain't got a degree in shit. We don't even know Sargon has a fucking high school diploma, my nigga.
We don't. We don't know if he's completed his A-levels. So we already talked about Lauren Chen.
That's Melissa Chen.
This is Melissa Chen. She is the managing director at Ideas Beyond Borders, study computational biology at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I think I could be wrong, but I think she's the person that got Amos E over here. I think that's kind of her claim to fame. I could be wrong about that, but so if I'm correct, she is the person that brought a weird fucking pedophile over here because he was being, he was jailed for his anti-Islam rhetoric in his home country.
Are we sure he wasn't jailed for being a pedophile, y'all?
I mean, even if he wasn't, he should have been. So then our good friend Armored Skeptic.
What?
And of course, Shoe on Head.
Did we?
Deal.
Yeah, can Shoe listen?
There we go.
Okay, so again, first episode, back with some technical difficulties. Shit happened, but you know what? We gonna persevere though. Because I'm a G. I'm not gonna stop. Albeit I was ready to quit at the beginning of this. Gee, I'm not gonna stop.
Okay, there we go. We're back.
Albeit I was ready to quit.
All right.
So what the fuck were we talking?
We were talking about
Armored Skeptic.
Armored Skeptic and Shoe on Head.
Shoe.
Yes.
Baby girl. You don't fuck with me. I don't really fuck with you, bitch.
She's blocked me as well.
Alright.
So Greg has not.
She mad. Even though she and I have something in common. I won't say what it is. I'll be nice to her. Alright.
You also have in common that you have big dad-bodied boyfriends.
Yeah, but hers proposed to her. Burn notice.
Ouch.
Yeah, that hurt, don't it? It hurts, don't it? I love you. I love you. Mwah.
I don't make you get into creepy threesomes.
You don't. I wish you would though. No, Shoe baby, he riding your coattails, girl. He with you for the views, girl. Leave him. Find yourself a better white man. You have what, 1 million fans? Bitch, one of them is suitable. Girl, don't marry him, girl. He moved you to an apartment close to him, but not in his apartment. Bitch, I I moved in with him. We didn't live in separate. We were at a long distance relationship, and then we lived together. I didn't live in an apartment up the street from him.
And that's not even like what's going on there. She's still living like 2 hours away from him or something. Or
Girl, do yourself that favor. Treat yourself, girl. All right? I'm worried about you. I don't want you to have low self-esteem, bitch.
Since the end of the skeptic days, Greg still does the occasional video debunking religion or whatever, but has also promoted like fucking weird fucking conspiracy theories and pseudoscience-y type things.
We should have recorded it. We watched one of his recent videos that was like...
He later claimed it was like satire, but, whatever.
That's not what was in the video, nigga. That nigga...
What about like the fucking mud earth?
The mud sill theory.
Yeah.
And I was like... Anyway, she went ahead. I didn't think she was a skeptic. I thought she started anti-feminist. Mm-hmm. That's what counts as skepticism nowadays, I suppose. Next.
Yeah, it doesn't say anything about her being a skeptic. Alright, so we get Stephen Knight, blogger and host.
And
very white guy.
Right. Pause. What the fuck does Shu on Head know about anti-racism?
Nothing. Let's see what panel she's on. How to admit when you're wrong. Which, okay, Shu has admitted to being wrong a couple times.
And then she was like...
Not as many times
as she should have.
Yeah. Not as many times as she should have, but to be fair.
We'll have that we're going to have that conversation down the road.
Yeah.
I don't know who this man is.
I don't necessarily want to antagonize Shu too much, but we'll talk about that another time.
Oh, we don't? Girl, listen. If you want to get in touch with me, as all y'all know, at the Lady Columbia, you want to have that conversation with me, we can have that conversation. I'm not above having a conversation with you. But I'm going to tell you something. If you from the Chans, you better already know I'm a wild bitch. Off top. Mm-hmm. Off top. And anybody who thinks they edgy, you hear some of the shit I say to him in this house, nigga, you be like, should we cancel the
There are many times I've threatened to turn her into the SJW council.
Nigga, you know how many times this nigga should have been turned in, though?
Alright, so Stephen Knight, blogger and host of award-winning The Godless Spellchecker podcast. He's a critic of religion and proponent of freedom of expression, so we know what that means. You know what that's a dog whistle for. He wants to say the N-word. He is featured on the BBC's flagship ethical debate show and frequently reports from UK secular conferences. He's going to be on The Great Migration, a discussion of digital and physical immigration, nuanced context, and the future of comedy online.
Hell no, he's not. Hell no, he's not, y'all.
Alright, so then we move on to our one black person, Josephine Matthias, a YouTuber who utilizes her political science background to explore trending socio-political topics. She is a free speech advocate and that identifies as somewhere between classical liberal and democratic liberal. So we know that she is a Candace Owens type.
I need more lip gloss when we finish this.
They couldn't get the real Candace Owens. That's how sad this is. They had to get a knockoff Candace Owens.
Can you say that?
What?
Is that? I guess it's not Uncle Tom, so I guess you can say it.
Yeah, it's a Candace Owens. That's a real person.
Candace Owens is Uncle Remus, nigga.
Uncle Ruckus.
For real! For real!
She's going to be on the panel, Demonetized. What role should corporate America play in activism?
I'm good.
All right.
Don't read this count, Dank. We know who he is.
The shame of Scotland, as we have heard.
Thank you.
Okay, Karen Strawn.
This bitch ain't this low rent, halfway looking Rachel Maddow ass ain't been relevant since fucking 16, nigga.
Oh, I think that's generous.
That is?
I would
13?
Say 14, 15 maybe. But yeah, totally irrelevant. Still kind of like this figurehead amongst the incel fucking MRA community, but
she need to come out. It's all right, Karen. It's all right.
But she's...
Bitch, it's 19. You can do what you want. Be who you are inside.
She's trash. And
she is trash. Blair, I will give Blair this. Because I feel like, I'm going to say this alive on camera. I really feel like Blair's type of person I get drunk with and be like, bitch, you know you're wrong. She'd be like, yeah. Well, I know, but I get money.
This website's suddenly acting real weird.
Okay. I feel like me and Blair, and there is a time and a place where Blair White and I could get along and like have a conversation about what's real. And I feel like she'd acknowledge like what she fucked up on and what she do and what's wrong with her ass. But then she'd be like, but I get money and I can't stop getting this money. I gotta really do my Blair White for I like she get this money and she cannot get this money. Okay, I feel like that, and I can't hold it in no more, y'all.
All right.
Blair is not doing political videos as not to be as much trash.
But she still says a lot of trashy shit on Twitter.
So. But she's still trash. She right. Twitter trash.
So Raka Ali.
I will say this. I once did a live stream debate with Escapist Podcast.
Oh, yeah.
In which Ruka Ali was the moderator. And he wasn't horrible. He is very centrist.
Right. So Blair White, we discussed her. Hunter Avalon. Is it Avalon or Avalon?
Avalon.
Avalon. Okay. So he's trash.
What panel he gonna be on?
Nuance, context, and the future of comedy online.
No.
He's an outspoken commentator on social and political topics and infuses humor into his
content. He is a fascist.
Yeah. I like his picture too. So I don't know. Probably not gonna be able to see that. Oh, there you go. Boom.
I'm done.
Aidan Paladin, a libertarian political commentator, an independent researcher. What university is she doing research for? Oh wait, not, because she's independent, which means she's just fucking Google scholaring shit.
She's not even using Google. Nigga, that bitch used Conservopedia. Stop playing.
Independent researcher. Go fuck yourself, Minds.
He said.
With an emphasis on human communication and social psychology.
I wish y'all would stop lying for this bitch. She don't do nothing.
She creates videos designed to serve as edutainment.
No, you did not. You did not say that. This does not say Bitch, who have you ever educated?
Via in-depth exploration of relevant findings in the social sciences and their application to current events and politics.
Hell no!
As it applies to issues of intergroup conflict across race, sex, culture, and ideology.
They making these blurbs up. They making these up hard to say. This is like the blurbs you see on the back of a movie from fucking Best of the Worst or MS3T3 Cray or some shit. Just made up shit.
Alright, so we already talked about Andy No. Daisy Cousins is a YouTuber and cultural political commentator based in Brisbane, Australia. She's a regular television commentator on Sky News and contributes to a number of print publications, including The Spectator Australia and The Courier.
She right wing. Next.
And then Mike Rowlands, who has no blurb.
They didn't even give Mike a blurb, y'all.
Rude. All right,
intentional.
So that's the list. Any closing?
These are the worst possible people to talk about these topics, and Minds knows it. And Mythcon is so desperate for some relevance, they'll chase after anybody. But we got some comments.
Let's see. All right, we got somebody new.
Temple is on our list twice because I copy-pasted, so yes, he is on our list twice.
We get someone new in the chat, Yvette.
Yes, Yvette. Roman Millennial is the worst.
Blair White blocked her on Twitter.
Proud of you, girl. Proud of you, Zay. I don't know how you identify. Sorry about that.
I will admit that some of Ruka Ruka?
Mm-hmm.
Ruka Ali's songs made me laugh.
I'm not gonna fault you for that, honey.
Maybe it's a different Tim Pool. Probably not.
Yeah, it's a different Tim Pool.
All right, so
it's the two faces that are.
So yeah, Mythcon's a joke. They used to be a legitimate skeptic conference, and now they were basically just we we platform fucking
Right-wing
Nazi adjacent fucking trash. And that's what we do now.
Bang, bang, bang. Trash.
What can I get out of?
Your phone is just like, bitch, why you doing this?
No Ian Miles Chong. I wish there was, because Ian Miles Chong was my nemesis for a while.
He was.
If you head over to my channel, I do have a video all about Ian Miles Chong. Not
to interject, but and on this channel, I did my How Much Bullshit Can You Handle challenge on Ian Miles Chong's Twitter.
Indeed.
And that was hard.
Indeed. Yeah, I imagine it was. And, for a long time, he was like my Twitter nemesis. Like, I would be hunting down his tweets, fucking making fun of him relentlessly, jumping into his mentions. He has since blocked me, and now it's a lot harder for me to, keep up with him. I still will switch over to an alt account every now and again to see what Ant-Man's doing, but I can't keep tabs on him as much as I used to. It's kind of a pain in the ass. Yes, Andy Worski burned out. Wasn't there?
Didn't Andy Worski get shot?
Or he was involved in some kind of shooting incident or something. I don't know. Yeah, he burned his nipple and burned out. Good point.
Yeah. It was some random geek. Yeah, it's you, baby.
So I think that's about all I have to say about Mythcon. I think, like I said, it used to be a legitimate skeptic conference, and now they bring in the alt-right and radical centrist douchebags.
Well, they have to in order to keep people talking about it. I mean, we're sitting here talking about it.
We are. So shame on us.
We gave them that. We're giving them that shine.
All right. So we're going to move on to our next topic.
Topic number 2.
Our boy Tim Pool.
Yes.
So, to set this up a little bit, there was a movie called The Hunt that was ads were coming out for it. Hadn't been released yet, but
I personally want to see the shit out of that movie.
There were ads for it. Yes, he was involved in a standoff. I heard that Ant-Man is the dumbest guy on Twitter. He is, and some random geek likes your goblet.
Thank you, honey. It was a gift from him.
And I don't believe it's beanies, Yvette. I believe it's the same beanie. But yes, I believe the beanie is actually his brain, and that's why he's as dumb as he is.
Maybe he's got like that disease where his brain is exposed, and it just keeps getting like lint.
Like that guy on DS9 that Jedzi is always like, the guy with the transparent skull. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about. Anyways, so there was this movie, and it was made by the same guy that made The Purge. And basically the general plot line of it is that a bunch of rich Hollywood elite liberal types have set up this like game where they kidnap
it's the
deplorables.
It's the deadliest catch, guys.
Right.
It's that movie where they hunt people.
Right. And so they get all these hillbillies and Trump supporters and bring them out to somewhere in the woods and then hunt them.
Which you would think would be lightweight fair because they're always about their war life.
Right. But I'm pretty sure the guy that made The Purge is kind of like a right winger. I could be wrong about that. I'm not entirely sure. But in any case, it seemed very clear from the ads for the movie that the hunters, the rich liberals that were
the bad guys.
Were the bad guys. This was, a satirical horror movie that was, obviously painting the liberals as the bad guys and the Trump supporters as the sympathetic victims. And so then our boy Tim Pool had this to say about it after he saw the ads.
Right.
So we're gonna listen to Tim Pool a little bit here.
Which God knows we don't want to do.
God help us.
Quote, did anyone see what our rap effer-in-chief just did? One character asks early in the screenplay for The Hunt. At least The Hunt's coming up. Nothing better than going out to the manor and slaughtering a dozen deplorables. That's a line in the movie they thought was appropriate to come out right now, especially with everything happened. Pull the movie. Seriously, I mean, look, man.
Now, this man, I turned it up a little bit. This man is a free speech advocate, quote unquote, and this is his how he's going to find that, and this is how he's going to deal with it. Just pull it.
Yeah, just pull it.
Also, like, This is America. You have to deal with speech you don't like.
Now, he's going to walk that back a bit, but...
Oh, he's going to walk that back a lot.
But you'll hear that he's walking it back, but he's not really walking it back.
I'm not saying the movie should be pulled
Because
necessarily.
I just realized I'm a free speech advocate, and I can't say that.
Necessarily because I'm offended by it. I'm saying it because I think it's going to make
not because of my
it's going to
fee-fees.
escalate everything.
Escalate everything. Okay, you realize that...
So he wants to make clear that it's not because he's offended, because facts are more important than your feelings, kids.
He's super offended.
He's super offended. But he thinks it's going to escalate violence between the left and the right.
Yeah, like he cares. And you do realize that... I thought he meant escalate violence against the president, which isn't a thing. Like,
right.
This...
No, what he's saying is...
By this time... Well, hold on.
Go ahead.
By this time, in Obama's presidency, he had become the most threatened president in the history of the country. Great. Trump is the most hated president in the history of the country, and still, we're not at that level yet. So just saying.
But so what Tim's saying is that he thinks that basically some deplorable is going to see this movie and think, oh shit, there are these rich Hollywood liberals that are setting up games to hump me and my family.
Which effectively...
So we need to go shoot them first.
Which effectively is just like, well, so you think that those people are stupid enough not to be able to discern like reality and fiction, or satire for that matter. So that's your tell. And then two...
Well, they did vote for Trump, but you know.
Well, even... we can argue about that to the day we die. People make bad political decisions. And that is something that, too, kind of plays into, talking about leftists is people are going to make bad political decisions.
Indeed. We'll touch on that later.
So the question becomes... Yep, give them a bowl of Raisin Bran. I'm with you, Adam. I'm 1,000% with you. So... You think so lowly of these people that they're going to be like, I'm scared for my life because of a movie. Really, Tim?
Yep.
No, Tim is he's not about free expression. He, like many free speech, quote-unquote, advocates, are people who only believe in the speech that they like, as they accuse us of being all the time.
And they only think facts come before feelings when it's somebody else's feelings.
Yep. When it's their fee-fees, no, don't hurt mine. What about my childhood? Rocco killed my childhood.
Rocco's postmodern life, am I right, guys? Woo!
It didn't work on Twitter. It don't work now. Stop trying to shoehorn it in. Nigga, listen, he can tell, I was howling the whole... Rocco's Modern Life was my childhood. Okay?
I am older, so it was not my childhood, but my sister did watch it. So I had seen a few episodes, but I wasn't, super familiar with it.
I was howling that whole time. That shit was so good. Alright? I had a Conglommo shirt. If I can find a picture of it, I'll definitely post it at some point. I had a Conglommo shirt. We own you. I'm straight up Rocco. Rocco, I know Recycle. I know that whole song by heart. My nigga, Rocco taught me so much about life, and so to see that special really evolve and to really evolve into a new area and to just talk about trans issues as something like this is normal, this is life. You gotta, you just gotta accept the winds of change. Was really refreshing and beautiful, and I think it's a great message to not just kids but their parents and to these idiots who are just like, but what about my childhood? Grow up, nigga.
Mm-hmm. And I loved, and even not being a super fan of the show, not being super familiar with it, I love the fact that they baked their own critics into the show in the main character at the very end, with Rocco being like, no, this isn't the fatheads?
Yeah. The
fatheads that we grew up with. This is a different, new fatheads, and we can't like this. And, that's basically the online man-baby brigade about everything. Whether it's She-Ra or Star Wars or fucking whatever.
And the Chiron, the whole, whenever the news would come on, the little Chirons at the bottom were always digs at these people. And I was like, Rocco was always super subversive. And it's one of those things where if you watched Rocco, I'd like to see a study of how many kids watch Rocco and have left-wing political beliefs now. Because on Life, it brought so many issues to my attention as a kid, right? And I didn't get it, but then I got older and I watched it and I was like, Niggas taught me some shit. RECYCLE, recycle! Okay, I'm done.
Alright, so back to our Beanie Boy.
Yeah.
You know what? Don't pull the movie. I have no idea. Let the movie happen. I feel like it's dominoes falling over. Everything we're seeing just can't be stopped. But I'll tell you what, man, there are going to be people who see this. Crazy people who take it seriously. And they're going to panic and be like, the Hollywood elites are telling us what they think. Let's read on.
So that's about all we have of Tim. But
that's all we need, nigga. I don't need to hear the rest of his ramblings to know what the fuck he doing with
But basically the point, and then the point is that the movie did get pulled. So the studio decided that they weren't gonna release the movie now. At least they might release it at some point in the future. But they basically said because of the recent shootings and whatnot, they don't feel like it's.
And I think that's a much more legit. If he had been smarter, he would have said, right now in America we having a real big issue in terms of guns. Let's not deal with this right now.
Right. So they pulled it, and then Tim's like, "Whoa." That was literally his tweet. It just said, "Whoa," like fucking Keanu Reeves or some shit. Like, Tim, that's what you were fucking advocating for, was pulling the fucking movie, and then you're surprised when it actually happens, because you weren't the only one advocating for it, and Trump fucking tweeted shit about it. And
Trump acted like this shit was happening.
Right. Yeah, he tweeted about the movie like it was real life.
I'm just like...
Because he's crazy.
Nigga, if you don't stop eating this out at McDonald's, nigga, like, listen...
It's all those burnt steaks that's doing it.
Don't think I wouldn't be ordering McDonald's to the White House. Don't think if I became Her Imperial Majesty that I wouldn't, be like, bitch, if you don't go and give me some McNuggets right this second, like, you execute it.
She does that already, to me.
This nigga fucked me out of getting McDonald's twice. In the last like 2 weeks.
I never.
Oh, you never, did you?
No.
Yes, you did.
When?
Yes, you did. You fucked me out of getting McDonald's. One was not your fault. One was Uber Eats' fault because we were out of range.
Okay.
Or they stopped delivering over here. But the other, you were totally your fault because...
Oh, at Fenway?
Oh, that makes 3 then. Because I went to...
2, because one of them is not my fault.
No. I'm telling you what number 3 is. I went to Downtown Crossing because they don't sell menthol cigarettes around here, and the place that actually does sell them around here was closed, so I had to go all the way downtown to get cigarettes. Okay. I'm in Downtown Crossing. I asked this nigga before I left. I was like, hey, so what do you want to do about dinner? Before he even left the house, what do you want to do about dinner? No response. Didn't say nothing. Just sat there looking like that. Okay? Didn't say shit. I'm like, cool, I'm going to go downtown. I'm thinking he going to be home at like 10. I'm like, cool, I'm going to go to downtown Crossing like 8 o'clock, get some cigarettes, like stop at the Mickey D's, bring it on the train, come back, be cool, right? This nigga texts me, get out of work early. Where you at? I'm in downtown Crossing, I'm about to go to McDonald's, get some food. I thought we was going to have dinner together, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, fine, I'll just hop the train and I got the cigarettes, hop the train, came back. So that's number 2, he fucked me out of McDonald's. Number 3, oh, nah, baby, we should go to Fenway. Nah, baby, we going to Fenway. Don't even worry about it. We'll get some food over at Fenway, blah, 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 blah. They got food over there. They got trash over there.
Yeah, it was rather disappointing.
They got food for rats over there.
I got a Cuban sandwich that was, and I love Cuban sandwiches. They're like one of my favorite fucking sandwiches. Besides a Reuben, I think a Reuben's probably my favorite. But I got a Cuban, and it was the most just pathetic. It wasn't like bad. It was just not
tasteless.
Good. Yeah, it was like the most, and it was small. It was tiny. It was like the most pathetic little Cuban sandwich I'd ever had. Like there was no pickle taste coming through, and that's like the whole that's the big part of a Cuban. And then I got a slice of Regina's Pizza, which if you're not from the Boston area, you're not familiar with. But Regina's is
the best.
The best pizza in the Boston area for sure. I mean, maybe there's some little mom and pop somewhere that we don't know about, but as far as like a kind of local small chain, great fucking pizza. I got a slice of Regina's Pizza in Fenway, and it was just not the same as like when you get it at a real Regina's. Like it was still decent. It wasn't bad. It wasn't nearly as bad as the fucking pizza I had at Yankee Stadium. I'll tell you that fucking much. But it was edible. It was fine, but it wasn't Regina's.
I had a Tasty Burger because I had never had them before. Yeah. We've been contemplating like, oh, should we order from Tasty Burger, whatever. It tasted like nothing. The lettuce had more taste than the burger did.
And now we still don't know, is that just how Tasty Burger is, or?
That's what I'm gonna think of them. So fuck them.
Right.
And it was $8.50.
Mm-hmm.
$8.50. Okay. I think it was like a 9 or 10. It was like $10 for like 2 chicken tenders and some fries, and the fries were the best part. The chicken tenders weren't dry, but they were like, it was like somebody just inserted a chicken like stick into some breading. And then I'm too full because I had, you have a pretzel, you have a burger, you have chicken fingers, fries. You snack throughout a baseball game because baseball is boring.
Sure, baby.
And so you got to do something when you're not doing the wave or singing Sweet Caroline. You got to do something. So you eat.
Yeah, or drink, but we weren't drinking. We were juuling in the bathroom though.
We were juuling in the bathroom.
I felt like I was doing drugs.
You were doing drugs.
You know what I mean.
You're doing drugs. But I was so that's number 3. I'm fucked out of McDonald's because of this nigga.
All right.
So.
Indeed. All right. So on that note, let's transfer into the next topic.
Okay.
I am going to go run away for a minute, and I'm going to get some water or something. And I'm also going to turn the air conditioner on, and I'm going to see how it sounds, because I'm getting hot.
I've been hot. I'm in a sweater.
Yeah. All right. So you transition, start your speech, and I'll be back in a minute.
It's not a speech. We just talking. All right. So turn it to low, because I don't want to deal with no bullshit. It's on low. We good. It's on the last one, so it's on low. So I'm going to turn the gain down a wee bit.
I'll just leave it as it is. I'll check it over here.
Alright. Sorry, y'all. It's been a burpy night. This nigga leave us on my own. So, let's transition, my dudes. Alright, gotta get some statistics, some facts up here. Okay, so, today is sorry guys. Today is August 12th, and it is the 2-year anniversary of our comrade, Heather Hare's death, or murder, by a fascist. And on this day, I want to say that I'm really sorry to her friends and family. They've lost someone they love, and I'm proud that she died fighting for what we believe in, because many leftists will come and go in this world, but so few of us will ever die fighting. And I'm a Klingon on the inside. Like, I'm a warrior on the inside. And so to die in battle is of the highest honor in my mind. To die in battle is the highest honor in my mind. So I am proud that is how she died. This section isn't about Heather. It's about our reaction to her death. We have a problem in that we remember Heather, and we should. But I think that it speaks to a larger problem in the leftist community, that we remember Heather, but we don't remember all of the people who died after Heather and before Heather at the hands of fascists. And I think that right now it's important that we talk about some of those people. So this is directly from the the Southern Poverty Law Center. And I'm going to talk about a few individuals that we should talk about, a few individuals, highlight a few incidents that have happened after her death and before. And then I'm going to come back and talk about a little bit of the wider issue and what we can do about it. So, D'Amico Williams, who was 17, was murdered by the Aryan Brotherhood in jail during a riot orchestrated by the Aryan Brotherhood to force their transfer from that particular prison because they didn't want to be housed with African American roommates. They intentionally rioted against the children who had been tried and convicted as adults. So they murdered children on purpose. And there's supposed to be some big bad prison gang. An unnamed African American man was murdered by an Aryan Brotherhood member named Christopher Copson for quote, inadvertently blocking a driveway. Michonne Cooper is murdered by Ronald Lee Kidwell, who claimed to be a member of the Ku Klux Klan and the Aryan Nation. Timothy Kaufman is murdered by James Harris Jackson. He committed the murder as a way to deter race mixing and as a trial run for his wanting to, quote, hunt and kill black men. Lieutenant Richard Collins III is murdered by Sean Urban-Seki. Urban-Seki is a part of a group called the Alt-Right Nation. Christopher Sean Harper Mercer murders 9 people at a community college in Roseburg, Oregon. 4 Minnesota men shoot and wound 5 Black Lives Matter protesters in Minneapolis. James Barnwell and Gary Dodson throw a Molotov cocktail through an unidentified interracial couple's window and were members of the neo-Nazi group Blood and Honor. White supremacist David Peterson and his girlfriend Holly Ann Grisby murdering several people murdering several people, including an unidentified African American man in Eureka, California. Keith Luke, a white supremacist, murders 3 unidentified African immigrants from Cape Verde, killing 2. Luke claims that this was part of a wider plan in which he would go to synagogues after and murder, quote, as many Jews as possible. He claims to be fighting for a dying race. Richard Andrew Poplawski. Richard Andrew Poplawski, an anti-government white supremacist, murdered several police officers, including African-American officer Eric Kelly. Shauna Ford helps to murder an unidentified Latino man and his 9-year-old daughter in Arizona. She is the executive director of the Minutemen American Defense, an anti-immigrant vigilante border group, and she personally has ties to the Aryan Nation in Idaho. White supremacist Dennis Mahone and his brother Daniel are indicted in Arizona for their connection to a mail bombing to a diversity office in Scottsdale that injured 3.
And so this is just the list of and how over what time period was this?
This is from 2019. It's from 2018 to 2009.
Was it basically just in the time since Heather Hare died?
Well, yes, but it's before
and this is just like the people that were killed directly by actual avowed white supremacists. This doesn't include, police killings, which are often a result of white supremacy,
yes.
Institutionalized racism, and such like. So
this doesn't even include like a lot of Jewish people who are murdered, Latino people who are murdered, etc.
So yeah, that should be a sobering statistic or a sobering list. For as you say, we recognize when a young white girl is killed, which again no detriment to Heather.
Right.
Certainly a fighter for the cause out there who died for the cause.
Always.
But it speaks to our society and what we take recognition of.
And I think that today, that in honor of Heather, in honor of what she believed, in honor of what we believe, that August 12th should be her day, but it should be our day to reflect on all of the people who have been murdered by white supremacists. That we should not just mourn for Heather, but that there are thousands of families across the United States who have loved ones taken from them by white supremacists for whom we might tweet about it for a day, we might tweet about it for a week, but after that, when the anniversary of their murder comes around, we don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that August 12th would be a good day to do that, to talk about Heather, but on top of that, to talk about the other individuals who have lost their lives to white supremacy, and to start having, it's important that we can continue, you and me and, people who support us can continue to have these conversations amongst ourselves. But that's not the problem. The problem is our conservative uncles and nephews and nieces and friends.
But that's not the only problem. There is a problem in leftist spaces as well. and that will segue into our next topic.
There is. So I am going to bring that up, and so you, baby doll, you segue.
Well, so before we kind of jump right into this, let's.
We'll preface this.
There, even within leftist spaces that are supposedly intersectional,
right.
Anti-racist, there are still, we saw this in the recent, bread tube, left tube.
We still struggle.
We still struggle that most of the voices, most of the big names in these spaces are white. They may be queer, they may be trans in some cases, but they still tend to be mostly white. Basically the only big lefty YouTubers, and big is a relative term, but the only big creators in the sort of bread tube, left tube realm that are not white are Cat Black and the one janitor.
I would say before Harriet doesn't even have 100,000 subscribers.
Okay.
And she's like, if you guys aren't subscribed to For Harriet, you fucking up. You gotta go and you gotta get with that lady. She is a brilliant woman who does really amazing videos, pop culture topics, politics, everything. Please go check out For Harriet.
Baby, would you, before we delve into this, would you slide down a bit?
No.
So I'm like...
I don't get... You're white! See, this is... And here go the problem. Right here. Right? White men trying to dominate black spaces. This is my black space.
I was just trying to illustrate the issue for everybody. Equality. Alright, so,
He ain't getting pussy no more, y'all. It ain't happening.
So, some of you may have seen there was a debate yesterday between Destiny and Emerican Johnson from the Non-Compete channel. Destiny is someone that I actually shouted out at one point in the past, probably about a year ago, maybe, somewhere in that neck of the woods, as one of the people that I liked on YouTube that were doing gaming-related content, but also were tackling socio-political issues from a leftist viewpoint, or probably more accurately, a anti-right viewpoint. Because everyone else I named on that list is a leftist. There were a few others, Jim Sterling, Austin Horrigan, one or two others. When I named Destiny, I wasn't super familiar with Destiny at the time. I just was mostly familiar with his debates with right-wingers. But as we've come to find out, Destiny is more of a sort of centrist, probably left of center, but, probably like a moderate Democrat, like a mainstream Democrat. And, definitely a staunch capitalist. Well, not staunch. He does say that, he's not tied to capitalism. He's just,
But he's willing to defend it.
He's willing to defend it, sure.
Vehemently now.
Right.
I would say they're.
I think part of that is also that he is. He got annoyed with leftists on his timeline, calling them out for every little thing, and he just started trying to basically get leftists to fuck off and hate him, and he succeeded. So
Good job.
there's that. But so clearly he's not a leftist. That said, he still does good work against the right.
Agreed.
And probably at some point has helped de-radicalize a few people, perhaps, or at least kept fence sitters from going to the other side. Most likely. We don't know that for sure, but I'd be willing to, bet. So I don't think his work is without merit. I certainly don't agree with him on a lot of issues, but there are many issues I would agree with him on. And so he had a debate with Emerican Johnson, who I was somewhat familiar with before. He describes himself as an anarcho-communist, though he got a little wishy-washy with his definitions because it kind of sounded like he might be an anarcho-syndicalist.
Yeah, when he said that he's more in line with anarcho-communism, but then as he began to describe how he believed the world would work out and what policy would look like, then he was really arguing. He was really saying that he was an anarcho-syndicalist. I don't know that he didn't come out and say, "Well, I'm actually an anarcho-syndicalist," but the way he was describing the world was anarcho-syndicalism.
I don't know exactly what's going on between Hassan Piker, H-Bomber Guy, and Destiny.
We in the chat now, yo.
Yeah, I'm just checking the chat real quick. Blah, blah, blah. Destiny still likes capitalism. Yes, he does. He's a big lover of free market capitalism. Again, I don't know if he necessarily is a big lover of free market capitalism, but he certainly is convinced that it's better than the alternatives he has thus far had presented to him. Yes, the Lady Columbia absolutely needs more viewers, more subscribers, which is why I just shouted her out on my channel, and that's why we're doing this first episode on her channel. It will be re-uploaded to my channel as well, and then the second episode will probably be on my channel, and we'll alternate back and forth.
So, Sam Random Geek, you're right. Many ANCOMs do agree with a lot of Ansons. Tends to be, though, that in terms of those kind of hard ideologues on both sides are like, we're not the same thing. I didn't say there was anything wrong necessarily with syndicalism, albeit if you really want to know the truth about it, I think that syndicalism was created at a time when America and Western Europe had a different economic system, right? Yes, you can still call that economic system capitalism, but it was in a completely different form that now I don't know that syndicalism really can work. It could work when the employees, were the factory workers, etc., but that's not our economy anymore. Our economy now requires much more specialization, particularly when you're talking about at the level of management. So I don't know, in terms of what you believe, I don't know. It's not what I felt with, but we'll get into that in a minute.
This is also the portion of the show where our leftist audience, which seems to be pretty much the entire chat, I believe, right now, and future leftist viewers are going to probably get a little mad at us because we are about to critique the left.
Yeah, child. Now, Yvette is right. Tabby gonna be mad. Tabby Cat gonna be mad, and I tell you what.
She's gonna smash.
She gonna smash. But
as we said at the beginning of the show, if you did not see the beginning of the show, we don't come here to. We're not Tim Pool. We're not Sargon. We're not pretending to be leftists to then critique the left. And we've spent all the rest of the show so far critiquing the right, or making fun of the right, probably, because they don't. A lot of times they don't even deserve critique. It's just so fucking silly. Like, we come from a place where we want to. I mean, first of all, we might want to get answers like that we have not seen before. You could change our minds. But we want to critique the positions of certain leftists in the hopes that if your ideology can't stand up to people on your side, then it's not going to stand up very well to people that don't already agree with you.
And if your ideology can't stand up to criticism, then what are we doing here?
All right. So let's jump into this. So in the wake of this debate, Emerican Johnson posted a little bit about it and just kind of had his kind of basic thoughts about what happened after the debate. That part isn't super important. The screen grab that you're seeing up here on the screen is somebody called the Disability Enthusiast, replied to his original kind of tweet about the debate and said, "I'm catching up. I'm just going to say this. Destiny is very, very white, and his takes on racial matters are freaking annoying as all get out. I'd love to see a radical black communist debate him again because, wow." To which Emerican Johnson replied, "I hope this happens as well. I think Luna held her own pretty well, and in the brief time she jumped in. There were times I just wanted to scream. Have you ever actually talked to any black trans disabled folks?" Alright, so I'm going to take a big issue with this, because Emerican Johnson is not very smart. I actually had basically the exact same debate with Emerican Johnson about race issues that Destiny did, almost like, piece by piece in YouTube comments like 7 or 8 months ago. I raised a lot of the same points that Destiny did, and Emerican Johnson basically read off the exact same script when he answered me that he did to Destiny. So let's jump into those YouTube comments. So this was on his video, I believe, How Anarchism Would Work in Real Life, Part 3, the military and police kind of stuff. So my original comment to him was, at the end of the day, any system of governance will have to use coercion. You will never reach 100% consensus and will always be violating the consent of some of your citizenry. To which Non-Compete replied, so what if that's true? It doesn't mean we can't continue to progressively try to reduce coercion as much as possible over time to constantly try to improve society and make it more open and egalitarian. That's the whole point of anarchism. We're not naive enough to think that we can wave a magic wand and automatically have a perfect society. We just want to try to make things better. We don't think we're finished developing as a society. We want to do better. I really don't get the point of this cynical line of thinking you're presenting here. So he clearly didn't see where I was going, so I said, well, let me ask you a question that should help illustrate the issue. What protects the rights of minorities within a commune? To which Emerican Johnson, Non-Compete, replied, I'm from South Carolina, so this is something I've thought about a lot, which is word for word exactly what he said in Destiny. And yeah, it's definitely true that there are places which would likely suffer a tyranny of the majority for...
Sorry.
Do I just click it?
Yes, okay.
For example, where white people oppressing black people through openly democratic means. We'd have to think pragmatically in a situation like that. External communities would have to put pressure, preferably non-violently, but militarily if necessary, to liberate such oppressed minority groups, and the minority groups would be perfectly justified in defending themselves as well. So think about what Emerican Johnson is saying here. He is saying that a commune in which black people were being systematically oppressed by the white majority in the commune would have to rely on outside communities coming to their defense. They would have to rely on another commune who may not come, who may be unable to free them, to liberate themselves. That's insane. Like, well,
I don't disagree with that. We haven't gotten to that.
We haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay. The notion that my family, my friends would be reliant on the white commune next door, right, to free it. No. No. That's worse than what we have now.
Yep. So you have to try to understand, we aren't fantasy-minded utopians. We know this won't be easy. Fixing the world will be a long, dangerous struggle. Sometimes force and direct action will be necessary. The best we can hope for is to find peaceful resolutions whenever and wherever possible, and to try to do our best to educate and nurture people into making the right decisions. I do believe that enough of us develop class consciousness and consciousness of other power structures and forms of oppression, then we can have a peaceful transition to a better society. But I'm under no illusion that it will be easy, but it's worth struggling for.
How many people in the Soviet Union would you think understood what the fuck communism was? How many people in China understood what the fuck Mao was talking about? 90% of the time, the majority of the population that you end up ruling, most people don't know what capitalism is. Most people don't know how democracy works.
Nope.
Right? 90% of the time, the vast majority of your population isn't going to know shit about what you're proposing. So to sit here and to say that my freedom, my liberation, and my personhood is reliant on them out there understanding, like, your complicated ideology, I'm good, my dude.
So I replied, this is why many POCs see anarchism and other revolutionary leftist ideologies as white privilege nonsense. Let's throw away the admittedly imperfect rights and protections we've gained in the hopes that the revolution will be friendly and some external communities will come liberate us if things go south. Which is basically what you just said, only with less fire. So at this point, this leads me to like back to his original tweet from yesterday or from today. You know, I just wanted to scream at some points. Have you ever talked to a black trans disabled person? Motherfucker, I want to scream. Have you ever talked to a black person? Like, do you?
Motherfucker.
Go ahead.
I'm brown. I'm queer, and I've got depression. You can talk to me anytime you want to, and I would tell you something. This is not what the vast majority of black people would want. Not by any stretch of the imagination. But again, we're gonna get into a little bit of a wider point a little bit later. So I'm gonna comment, but
Emerican Johnson, if you want to come on the show at some point and talk to an actual black leftist about how that feel, how they would feel about your little fantasy world.
And I'm one black person. There are plenty of black anarchists.
Sure.
There are plenty of black socialists. There are plenty of black people who I'm sure agree with this.
Yeah. There are plenty of people that are willing to fight and.
But they don't make up but like 5% of us.
Right.
And I'm gonna keep it 1 thou wow.
And what right do you have to make that decision?
It's ableist to assume that all of us are going to be able to pick up. We're already a minority, and then you're assuming that all of us can pick up a gun and fight.
Yep. So let's move on to the next comment. I mean, I just admitted it would likely require violent force in many communities. I'm not sure if you're a Marxist-Leninist or what, but I think you have a misunderstanding about anarchism. Most of us are more than willing to fight for the liberation of the oppressed. Did you happen to watch the part of this series I did on police military? So actually this was probably on part 2 of his video. Part 1.
Before you get into yours, here is my deal. We are all singularly representatives of our ideologies, right? We have to assume when we talk about anarchism, socialism, communism, anything, that we are the only point of reference that that audience member has for what we are talking about. And we also have to assume that they're never going to do any other research, okay, about what we believe. So you should never, ever, ever sit here and say, well, you don't understand what I'm trying to say. It is your job to articulate what we believe. What's next?
So Adam Rainstopper says, at Lady Columbia, this isn't representative of anarchism. The answer isn't to expect a capitalist state to protect the rights of the minorities. It's not in their interest. The answer is self-empowerment. No, that's not what Emerican Johnson was saying, and we don't think that's what he was saying. He was saying a neighboring commune, another anarchist society, would have to come and liberate you, or the black people within that commune would have to liberate themselves. So the answer is self-empowerment. But here's the problem with that. If you're the minority, if you're 10, 15, maybe 20 at best percent of the population, and as you said, some of that's going to be children, some of that's going to be, non-able-bodied folk, some of that's going to be, whatever, the elderly. So maybe, let's say 10%, now you're looking at maybe, or let's say 20%, let's say now you're looking at maybe 10% of the population is able-bodied adults able to pick up a gun and go fight. Okay, the other 80% of the population is against you. What are you thinking about? How is that going to be you can't just self-empower your way out of it.
No one is saying that the reliance should be on a capitalist state to protect us. But ultimately, what I am saying is that we have protections, legal protections that exist in the context of a capital liberal system that we have currently, right? And it ain't perfect. Plenty of black people get murdered by institutions, by individuals, etc. But now you're talking about that same situation, all right? Except you don't have government to run to, right? You have the neighboring commune, and it assumes that commune has the resources to fight, wants to fight for you, etc., etc. Where government, our constitutional democracy, is bound by its constitution to fight for you. Sometimes it doesn't. you have to be reliant on political cajoling in the version of anarcho-communism that he proposes. Now, I want to make it clear. He is proposing a version. I am not saying that his is the definitive version, nor am I saying that there isn't a version that I wouldn't go, oh, okay, maybe I agree with some of that. But I am saying that the way he proposes it, I'm fucking good. I'm real fucking good. And as far as I'm concerned, he is just proposing new ways to get black people murdered.
So, Cunado says, the scenario is flawed and lacks nuance. This discussion is sterile. Are we ignoring ICE here? I don't know what ICE has to do with this discussion at all.
What do you mean? Whose scenario? Remember, we're working inside...
Our scenario. Yes, we are.
We're working inside of
his scenario.
So you're criticizing his scenario. Are we ignoring ICE here? First of all...
I mean, ICE has nothing to do with this because this is a theoretical anarchist world that non-compete or Emerican Johnson has set up.
Right.
So ICE wouldn't exist.
Right. So it's a non-factor.
Or racist police worldwide. Again, I don't.
Adam, honey. No, you can't say it never does. All right, because the Department of Justice does on occasion prosecute people and put them in jail for hate crimes. Because states do on occasion prosecute people and put them in jail for hate crimes. Okay. When I say it ain't perfect, what that means is that not every case is prosecuted. And guess what? In any government, that would not be the case. It doesn't matter how much money that government had. It doesn't matter how anti-racist that government was. You simply would not catch everyone who committed a racist crime in any polity whatsoever.
Well, not to mention in an anarchist society where everything is done by direct democracy.
The will of the majority is it.
Will of the majority is it. So you still have bias. You still have, that's not going to change. Yes, it is.
It is systemic. We wouldn't deny that.
It could still be systemic in anarchist societies because the people are the system. And if the people are racist, then the system is racist.
Which they still are. My problem always with any emergent leftist ideology is that if we don't eliminate bias first, if we don't say the destruction of racism is our top priority, that's what we have to do first, then it destroys and it eats away at every other form of society because the vast majority of people in this country, the vast majority of people around the world are racist. So when they get full democratic power, they're going to use it in a way that's racist, and they are going to become a systemic racist power.
Okay, so first of all, some random geek, Emerican Johnson, has talked about this on his broadcast last night. He may have. I didn't watch it. But I've talked to Emerican Johnson personally, as you can see here, about this, and he had no answers or bad answers. So I don't know what he said differently in his broadcast, but like I said, yeah, anarchism needs to be intersectional, but you can't guarantee that.
No, you can't, honey. I just said, and I mean to death. You can't expect that the population that you rule over is going to necessarily all agree with you.
And again, and we'll get into that later too. But then Adam says, I'm talking about a different theoretical world, not his, but an anarchist society has a strong foundation in anti-racism and gay rights and trans rights, as well as class consciousness. Yeah, okay, but you gotta get there first. And I don't, how are you getting there? Because we're not anywhere near there yet. So, yeah.
But give Adam this. He acknowledges, though, that the first step in this is the elimination of those biases. That you can't get to that. What Adam, I believe, is trying to acknowledge, and I appreciate you, Adam, is that you can't get to that point of anarchism unless you take this step first.
And then Cunado says, we're not factoring in the cultural factor and elimination of artificial scarcity. I'm sorry. I am not...
Where?
Right here.
Okay.
I am not... cultural factor, maybe. I don't know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, honey, explain what you mean a little more. The elimination of artificial scarcity.
Well, the elimination of artificial scarcity, like, first of all, not all scarcity is artificial.
Right, I understand scarcity.
Some of it is.
Go ahead, sorry.
Some of it absolutely is. But I'm also not necessarily of the opinion that just because you eliminate scarcity, like, racial biases magically go away.
Yeah, and scarcity is a real economic principle. Like, fresh water ain't forever. And, diamonds ain't forever. Now, is there a paradox in value for scarcity? Yes. Do we have a problem with valuing things like diamonds over clean water, which is the typical example? Yes. Right? But that's not going to just, solve racism tomorrow. Resources could be abundant tonight. You could wake up and everything that humans need to live is abundant. But we have these things called states that control those resources. We have these people who control capital that control those resources. And even if tomorrow they were abundant, there's the distribution of those resources is still the issue.
Okay, so I don't want to be accused of strawmanning Cunado here, so we're going to try to steel-man him because he does clarify.
Okay, sorry about that, Cunado, honey.
Also, getting through the revolution won't happen out of the blue. Of course, that anti-racist education process is a must, or education against any systemic oppressions. Yeah, sure. An anarchist scenario won't happen out of the blue, he says. Revolution is a long historical process. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. We're there.
How long? And can we point to a scenario where anti-racist education really worked? And now some people may say it's never been done properly, so whatever.
I can't sit here and say one of the examples that you could use, it didn't work great, but it was an example, if you will, is that the Freedmen's Bureau, when slaves were first freed, the government developed the Freedmen's Bureau to give black people education, try to educate white people out of racism, etc., etc. It was never given any money or a lot of pull, so it didn't work great. But that has always been, cited as one of the reasons why America held on to racism, was because America didn't do a good job of really dedicating itself to anti-racism. But the problem still remains that look at the Republican Party versus the Democratic Party in the American context. Look at the Tories versus the Liberal Democrats or even Labor. In the Western political context, in most political contexts, racism is a valuable political tool. Racism allows you to gain followers. Racism allows you to clearly delineate between who you want with you and who you don't. Racism is a boon to you. So it's always going to be in someone's political interest to be racist.
Okay. Before we go any further.
What?
Because we're getting lots of comments in. And
it's
hard to keep up with them. So you're going to have to bear with us, guys.
Yeah, we're doing it.
We've got 5 or 6 people trying to, or 4 or 5 people trying to argue with us.
Talking to us at once, so let's...
And again, one of the problems with discussions, because I don't want this to be a debate show, discussions in leftist spaces tends to be that, with the right it's easy, because they just have little fucking stupid-ass sound bites. Well, it's easy for them because they just have little stupid-ass sound bites.
Well, yeah, and they can...
When you start getting into leftist ideology, there's a lot to discuss and unpack.
Right.
There's a lot more fucking shit there. So.
And I don't. And again, I want to reiterate because I want that reiterated because this is not the first. This is the first one, and it's going to be a lot. And this is going to be part of what we do. We're going to come across more leftists that we're going to want to talk about and talk about what they're saying to us or what they believe.
But so Cunado said, "Wait, are we defending capitalism here?"
No.
We're definitely not defending capitalism.
Capitalism is a driver for using racism as a political boon.
Capitalism is terrible at rationing water because all capital cares about is making more capital. It will deplete resources. I don't disagree.
No, we don't. I don't disagree with that. That was, honey, I was an example, but I don't disagree with you.
When not countered by capitalist systems, it does work. Abolition of capitalism is a must. I mean, again, like where do we see that? Like, give me an example, because
I can't say.
I mean, first of all, like when you're saying when not countered by capitalist systems, it does work. I mean, there was racism before capitalism, so what? Like, if capitalism's the only thing keeping anti-racism education from working, then why was there racism before capitalism?
And while capitalism is a impediment to anti-racist education, it is not the only impediment.
Yes. Like, that tends to be my problem with
Let me grab mine. Go ahead, sweetheart.
like, and I'm not saying necessarily that that's what necessarily people here in the chat are doing, but that tends to be my problem with class reductionism as a whole, which is probably not found too much here, because that tends to be more a thing with like the so-called dirtbag left and the anti-idpol left. But what I will say that you take away, like, the problem with class reductionism is that it leads you to believe that when you eliminate capitalism, all the other problems go away, and that's not true.
No, it's not true, because one thing we have to talk about too is, if we're going to talk about racism kind of as a topic, is there are several different forms of racism, right? One of those forms is simply cognitive, right? It's based on our own ability to be implicitly biased and prejudiced, and then that grows into, it's called aversive racism, where you have aversive responses to a particular race of people. That's something that's created by education, by inculcation to a particular type of society, etc., etc. That is passed down generationally. So if you tomorrow have a different economic system and a different political system, that doesn't mean that aversive racism goes away. It's still going to be passed down, because you might still be inculcated into a household where that is still a belief, right? So I don't love the idea that capitalism is the only impediment. It is a big impediment. It is one that we have to deal with, but there are several others that come from everywhere, from culture, which can be divorced from an economic system in a lot of ways, to politics, and not just liberal politics, but all politics down to the root, because prior to there ever being liberalism, there was still racial politics. So all of our systems have to be purged of this, right? And it's not just capitalism.
And some of the people in the chat are saying similar things to that. I do want to touch on Cunado again. And I kind of want to make this quick because I want to get to another question. But Cunado says racism is a product of imperialism that started in the Middle Ages. Capitalism embraces it and enhances it. It provides the cultural framework for it. That could be closer to accurate. That's not too far off from some of the things you were talking about with me personally the other night. You can kind of argue about when racism started, at least in its modern form,
right?
Because there were always biases and tribalism. But so I will say, that's closest to accurate. I mean, we could argue about that, but
for now, I'm gonna argue.
Not going to argue with it. But what you're leaving out there is that capitalist societies in the modern day don't have the monopoly on imperialism. China, I mean, you can say that they're not communists, which they're not, but they're not strictly I mean, they're state capitalist, whatever. I guess probably a lot of people are going to pull Russia or the Soviet Union was not communist. So,
I mean, but every society prior to the existence of liberalism was an imperial society in one way, shape, form, or fashion.
Right.
So it can't be denied that imperialism and colonialism and imperialism are features of every single ideology and economic system since the beginning of time. Whether racism is entirely a function of those two things, we won't know. We really don't know, because what we really need to know in order to determine whether that's true or not is when people use racism as a way to bolster their own self-confidence, right? What does that look like and this isn't coming out great, but what does that look like internally, right? What is the cassette that people play in their minds when that is a thing? Is that related to an imperial society that they've been inculcated into? Is it related to their class? Is it related to their own self-image and their ability to self-actualize? What is that form of racism attached to the most?
Okay, so I want to hit up one more question from the chat, and then we're going to kind of ignore the chat for a while, because otherwise we're going to be doing this all night.
Yeah, and we do have to move on, guys. So we're gonna take this question, then we're out.
I mean, I'm not going to say we're going to ignore it forever, but for a little while we're going to
continue on with this, and then we'll get back to you guys in a minute.
So some random geek who was basically agreeing with some of the other stuff you said, that everything needs to be fully, we need to get rid of all the biases before we can do an anarchist society. Maybe that's we're not anarchists. We'll say that right now. We're not part of the anarchist community. We certainly agree with anarchists on a lot of issues, and we consider ourselves leftists, but we are not anarchists.
Right.
But
and as I said at the top of the show, I don't think it's appropriate for me to even say what should come next. Right? I think my only job is to the elimination of those biases to create that foundation for what will come next. But I don't think it's entirely appropriate for me as a person to say, well, we should have anarchism, we should have X form of socialism, we should have communism. I think that is ultimately something that other people have to decide, because our
generations.
Yeah, because
when we get rid of those biases.
Well, yeah, and because the world will be different, and because right now, even as poor as we are, we're still living better than people in the future are going to be living. Right? Their quality of life is going to diminish. We know that. We don't even have to make that face. People in our positions, life will diminish. Our lives will diminish.
I don't know. I'm still hoping for a Star Trek future, but Anywho, the one last question I wanted to get to in the chat is from some random geek. What are your solutions to deal with the racism problems? We are listening. I don't think that we're arrogant enough to think that we have the solutions to.
I don't have a fucking.
But
I don't necessarily have these solutions. I can tell you that one thing that I think we have to plow through with, and this is gonna sound a little out there, is we have to do more in terms. We have to have universal health care. That's a step. I'll tell you why. Look at the countries that do have it. Sweden, Finland, countries that are relatively ethnically homogeneous, right? That's why they have it. We don't have universal health care in the United States because we're not much more so, but we are a country that's relatively ethnically diverse. And once you equalize,
I would say we're much more diverse than most of the countries that have it in Europe, at least. France is somewhat diverse, and as is the United Kingdom, but Norway and Sweden are certainly not.
All the Scandinavian countries. Once you give people a universalizing policy like that, once you say, hey, black person, white person, you getting the same health care. Once you do that, you acknowledge subtly that, oh, you're equal. And the more equalizing policies you have, the more that people, they can't grandstand on each other. You can't say, well, I'm better than you because I get blah, 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 or I have blah, 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 or I have access to blah, blah, blah. So it becomes incumbent upon government to try to seek more equalizing policies. I think that if you really want, one of the things I would love to see is a Republican Party, because they're the ones who use racism the most. I would love to see them drop trowel and say, fuck this. We believe in anti-racism. We are no longer going to use dog whistles. We are no longer going to accept racists in our party, and we are going to do the best that we can to try to repair the relationship that we have with the African American community, the Asian American community, the Latino American community, the indigenous community, etc., etc. Even if that meant from their own conservative economic policy, even if they said, well, we believe in, helping out the indigenous small businessman, that's still a greater boon if they will adopt anti-racism. That's still a greater boon to all anti-racism than what they're doing at the current moment.
All right.
So, guys, we have to move on. We do appreciate you know what I'm trying to say. I'm dying.
We'll let Lady Columbia recover.
We do appreciate you guys. We will be back, but we're gonna move topics now.
Oh, hold on! Don't switch it yet.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't read my response. So my response to Emerican Johnson was, it will require violent force from external communities that may or may not come. Why would POC sign up for that? It's easy for you to say this as someone whose very right to legal personhood isn't at stake. There's no guarantee that external communities would intervene, there's no guarantee that the local POC would be able to successfully defend themselves, and there's no guarantee that even if external communities intervened, they'd win. You're taking an awful lot of chances with other people's rights. That's white privilege. No, I'm not an ML, Marxist-Leninist. It's not your willingness to fight that I doubt. So Emerican Johnson replied with, I said POC may have to defend themselves and establish their safety through violence internally as well. I'm starting to think this is a bad faith discussion since you're glossing over entire portions of my statement and cowing against the position that you fabricated instead of engaging with what I'm actually saying. So he's accusing me of strawmanning him, to which we can go back and see that I was replying to what he said. I was replying specifically to what he said, that he said it would require violent force, either from an external community or from within, and I poked all the holes in that idea, saying that none of that's guaranteed, so why would people give up the rights they currently have for this pipe dream that may not exist? And
I'd like to talk about his response to Destiny last night, because it was disturbing to me.
Okay.
So during a portion, y'all know. During a portion of their debate, I'll get weird. During a portion of their debate, Emerican Johnson goes into an argument of fictitious factoring, in which, there's 70 workers. Actually, no, I'm sorry. This is actually Destiny's example.
There were 100 workers. 70 were white, 30 were black.
This is Destiny's example. So the 70 white workers don't want a black manager. So they don't vote on it. Mm-hmm. And the 30 black workers are like, this is some bullshit, to quote Destiny, which I thought was cute. So, what do you do about that? And his response was, well, they could form a dual power system. And I was just like, how does any work get done then? But okay, fine, that's an argument, that's a thing, fine. But what disturbed me was this notion that, well, they can rise up. They can take over that factory.
Overthrow or overtake. I forget exactly what he said. I think overtake, but it was clearly violent connotations. Though he did kind of backpedal, but then he said, yeah, you might have to do violence.
And I was just like, and we kind of just looked at each other like, did he really just say that? Because, one...
And I gave Emerican Johnson the biggest benefit of the doubt that I could. That it would actually succeed.
Right.
So I said, okay, we're thinking it's a surprise attack. They haven't announced clearly that they're going to be doing this. They somehow, planned this for a few months, gathered weapons, and every black person that works at this factory has acquired a weapon, a concealable weapon that they're going to take to work at the factory one day, and then they're going to have a signal, when the lunch bell rings.
When the lunch horn rings.
Right?
I thought that was cute when he said that.
They're going to attack. And because, nobody knew the attack was coming, they all had concealed weapons, they were able to overtake the factory, probably kill off a few of their, hopefully not all of their co-workers, but most likely had to kill some of their co-workers, or at least cow them all into submission. And now they've overtaken the factory, so continue.
What disturbs me is the idea that, what do you think happens when news of that gets out? Mm-hmm. How are other factories composed in a similar way? And I'm being generous, because I'm not saying everybody. How do you think they react to that? Do you think they react with, the black people were right? They should have murdered them people. I'm with y'all. I fuck with that. Or do you think now you've created an atmosphere where people feel like, oh my God, if I go to work, I'm going to get slaughtered? Mind you, let's take real world examples. Whenever there are shootings in the United States at schools, you have kids who lived miles away from that shooting, who have had nothing but a safe school experience, terrified that this is going to happen at their school. So, we know from real world examples that even when you're geographically removed from a situation, that a situation like that can still be terrifying to you. So, what is going to happen to black workers, right, when white workers see this and go,
it ain't going to be good?
Then you add that to the community at large, because this assumes, right, the internet's still a thing. We didn't smash capitalism and the internet stopped being.
I don't think this is an anarcho-primitivist argument, so as far as I know, the internet's still a thing.
So, now, not only does this get out to the local commune and the communes next door, this gets out to the world. What is the fate of black people, right, when it then comes to, let's say you have these big Confederate meetings, I don't mean Confederate like Confederates, I mean Confederate like, a confederation. What happens when these communes that have formed a confederation have these big meetings and they have to talk about this? Somebody's got to be on the justifying side. Somebody's got to be on the anti-justifying side. And depending on who's got more followers and who's got more influence, that means that they're going to control what the policy is.
And, if we go with the current ethnic breakdown of the United States, if we're saying the United States turns into a bunch of communes, that's not going to go well for black people. It's not going to go well for.
He tried so hard not to say blacks. I'm so proud of him.
It's not going to go well for any people of color, because they're all the minority. They're all a minority, and it's going to be bad. Another thing that Emerican Johnson said, I think, in the same bit of the debate last night, was at some point he said, because there would be these racial imbalances in some of the communes, it wouldn't really truly be a true anarchy, because all forms of hierarchy wouldn't be broken down. The only way to fully break down all the forms of hierarchy, I guess, would be to have a completely equal racial distribution.
Which would only happen if you could force people to move.
Or like homogenous, you have one commune that's all black and one commune that's all white, commune that's all Asian. But again, just like there's no such thing as a peaceful ethnic cleansing or whatever, Richard Spencer had that bullshit, I believe in peaceful ethnic cleansing. Like, I want to peacefully ship off all the black people to another country. That doesn't work, because you might be able to incentivize some people to move through one way, shape, or form, but are you gonna convince my girlfriend to leave? I don't think so. I'm pretty sure no. So there's no way to have a peaceful ethnic cleansing.
No,
just like there's
because
no way.
I fucking slit his throat long before that happened.
Right. There's also no way to equally enforce multicultural equal distribution. Because again, you're gonna have to move people.
And what bothered me was this notion that it could come down to violence.
Mm-hmm.
My nigga, where the courts at? What you talking about?
Well, the courts are seemingly also done by direct democracy, one would imagine, so they're subject to the same.
And it's just I don't like this.
Some anarchists have told me that they're good with constitutions. Other anarchists have been like, no constitution. This is all by the will of the founders, or the intention of the founders of the anarchist society. Which, if you don't have a constitution, you're just fucked from day one.
I am not living in any place that ain't got no I won't live in England because they ain't got a constitution, nigga. Hell no. I want codified laws that say I'm a human person.
Mm-hmm. You have to have some, and that's why you need a state, frankly, because
and let's not. I wouldn't even discount the idea that humans may get to a point where, a combination of bias and technology, handling bias, technology, and all kinds of stuff could lead us to a point where we were mature enough to deal with this, right? I wouldn't discount that. But we are not there yet. And what I don't want is for us to get lost in an ideology. We have a very small, in my mind, we have a small window where it's cool to be a leftist, right? Where government ain't really coming after us, where we're allowed to sort of freely express these ideas amongst each other and amongst the world and talk and, get through these and have these conversations with each other. And for us to grow, right? After, the end of the Soviet Union to this very moment has been our opportunity. Because the stigma of the Soviet Union and even other, socialist or communist societies that didn't quite work out has been lifted from society. Right. So
enough.
So we have a small window where we can gain adherence. We can openly have these conversations. I don't want us to get lost in ideologies that can't progress until 7 to 10 other steps are had. I want us to get into ideologies where they're relatively feasible. We can do a lot of the necessary steps now and in the next 5 to 10 years, so that within our lifetimes we can see real changes happening in polity.
Alright, so with that, let's jump to the next thing. We're still on Emerican Johnson, but I'm going to save you from my last reply to him because it's not super relevant. So we're going to jump on to a little discussion that he and I had on Twitter. And this isn't directly related to the last topic, but it's just kind of, we're kind of continuing our problems with Emerican Johnson and his ideology.
Now, I will say this. Whatever type of, if he's a decent person, I have a problem with that.
Sure.
Right?
He seems like a nice enough guy for all I can tell.
Because sometimes, our politics and how we feel about people personally sometimes get mixed up.
Right.
So I don't have a problem with him at a personal level. All we are sitting here and doing is critiquing what he claims to believe.
And somebody, I think, also kind of accused us of trying to bait him probably into a debate or...
I don't play that game of come live debate me. I don't give a fuck.
No. I just said he's welcome to come on.
Yeah.
But we're not, I don't care if he does not. I don't care if he ever sees this. We're here to discuss what we're here to discuss.
Right. And my channel, so I get to say this. Shut your white mouth.
Damn right.
I don't play that, we gonna come on my channel and we can debate. You can go through all my tweets. I ain't never said, come on my channel, let's debate. I don't play that shit. Alright? I don't like having debates because debates are not really debates as much as they are, I'm going to shoot this talking point at you and you're going to shoot one back, and that's what we're doing.
And it's theater.
I don't play that shit. All right?
Yeah, I don't ever want to have a debate on this show. Like I said, I am perfectly happy to bring guests on and have discussions. I do not want to have debates because debates are theater. They're not about facts. They're not about proving whose position is right or wrong. They are about theater. Who can win the most adherents? Who can fucking...
who can score the most points, rhetoric. Who can end up destroying the other person, right. And who can end up on Twitter the next day like, I won that bitch, blah, 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 blah. I don't play that shit. Not whatsoever. Not on my fucking channel. Not now, not never. So, don't even play me with that.
Alright, so this was, I don't remember what this was in response to or how this started, but this is the beginning of the thread that I wanted to kind of touch off on. So Emerican Johnson said the key differences between police and some kind of anarchist emergency violence response investigation organization is that the police are A, highly hierarchical, and police officers have special powers and lack transparency, accountability, community oversight, and B, police...
Excuse me.
What happened?
No, there wasn't anything between.
Okay, so then I just sort of jumped in, and this is again like one of my problems with anarchism is that it tends to just call things something else when they're still really the things that they already were. Because when you get to the point of having, workers' councils and a workers' council has power over the people within that workers' council, yeah, it's directly democratic, but that's still a state because it has the monopoly on violence. Like, yes, it's democratic. So in that respect,
Well,
the
yeah,
people
and
have the monopoly on
And
violence.
it's the legitimate governing body.
It is the sovereign governing body, and it can enact its will on individuals and minorities through the threat of violence. Whether that violence be, direct violence as like military, like I'm going to shoot you, police going to shoot you, or that's, I guess, fines necessarily wouldn't exist in a anarcho-communist society because there's no money, but through jail time, and we'll get to that, jail time or the canceling of your contract and basically being kicked out of the commune. So that's a state. Like, I'm sorry, guys, that's a state. And Emerican Johnson's going to argue with that here, so we'll get into that. And also, your emergency violence response investigation organization are still the police. They're different than the police we have, but they serve the same function. So they're still police. So you do realize that calling police an emergency violence response investigation organization doesn't actually stop them from being police. You could change the structure of the current police to be less hierarchical and not have special powers, and they'd still be police. To which EJ replies, whatever you call what we have now, it needs to be abolished. Abolish the police is a lot more succinct and to the point than abolish the current institution we call the police and replace it with a fundamentally different institution that we will also call the police. So the problem is it's not fundamentally different. It still serves the same purpose. Yes, it is different in the way it's organized and its hierarchy and its powers and what have you, but it still serves the same function.
And now we still, what body, so, okay, it serves the same function, you call it something different, whatever. Let's assume, by his own, I'm going to go back for a second. By his own definition, right, it's an emergency violence response investigative organization. Mm-hmm. Okay. Who are they accountable toward? Where's their accountability?
One would assume towards the Workers' Council.
So that's a state, honey.
Yes.
Because that's no different than the sheriff's department or Oakland Police Department being accountable to the city council.
Now he'll say that that's good because they have accountability, community oversight through that. But yeah, I'm not going to say it's not better.
But hold on. But even if they have that accountability, we're still talking about society here.
Yes.
And we're still talking about a situation whereby you still have these people who have these special powers to investigate your life, right? As responders to violence, etc., etc. They are still going to maintain some personal biases.
Sure. They're still going to have special powers, which is one of the things he says is different. But no, they're still going to have special powers.
So
they have to, otherwise they're useless.
So, in my mind, again, political science major.
I'm not. I'm just a schlub.
What is to stop a commune from saying, okay, special police powers, we don't like black people. We don't like those Mexicans. So whatever you do, we're just kind of gonna...
Absolutely nothing. We run back into the same conversation we just had. But yeah, there's nothing to stop that.
The problem I have with anarchism, the biggest problem I have with it is political influence. I have this problem, now let me be honest with you. I have this problem with all of our ideology, including my own, including as a socialist. I have a problem with, what do you do about influence? Particularly in a place that is a direct democracy. Because, and particularly when you're talking about now you have an ideology where money
doesn't exist.
Well, not even just like communist or anarcho-communist, but like ours where money still exists, right?
But let's actually go.
Hold on. Where money is not the driving force in our lives, so it's not the greatest influencer in our lives. That is not where social capital is derived from. But influence is where social capital is derived from. So now, political cajoling is more important. What you think about your representative, what you think about X, Y, and Z on the Workers' Council becomes even more important, right? So, what prevents that type of political cajoling that we all hate, where you and I go into the back room and say, hey, we cut this fucking deal, we do this fucking shit, and we, what the people think, we fucking burn.
And without even looking at the chat, I can tell you that most likely the answer is going to be education.
You can't educate people out of political cajoling.
No.
That's life.
Like, even without money, let's just say money's gone.
Fine.
Social capital still exists.
Right.
And, ideologues, charismatic people, they're always going to be able to seek their own interests. And just because money's gone does not mean that people still don't have self-interest.
Right.
Like, and this can actually be worse, because I'm not saying it's necessarily worse, but it could theoretically be worse, because if there's no money anymore, then your bias against black people, Mexicans,
let's invent a different bias. Let's say we got rid of those.
Okay.
Let's say
your bias against blue-eyed people.
Your bias against
red hair,
tattooed people.
Okay.
Right? Continue. So
you're biased against tattooed people. Now you don't want tattooed people working at the factory, like that this commune, this workers' council is from. Now, you don't like tattooed people, so you can just, if you're an ideologue that's charismatic and has social capital, you can make that happen. And, to some extent, and again, not defending capitalism, but to some extent, the profit motive currently can actually sometimes be a good thing in that regard.
Yeah, because a really don't control society.
Right. You got all these woke brands these days, because we've won to a certain
even going back to the civil rights movement, a lot of, when Montgomery Ward saw the photos that came out that day of the civil rights activists who were, just plastered with shit because they were sitting at a segregated lunch counter, they said, let's not. Yeah. Let's not.
But, we're under no illusion that these corporations are woke. That they're doing it for the money. But there is money there, and sometimes that works in our favor. Most of the time it doesn't. But in some cases it does.
Every now and again.
It is bad business currently to look like you're homophobic or you're racist or you're transphobic or whatever. For the most part, obviously there's niche products.
Yeah, if you Hobby Lobby, you want to be all those things. You Chick-fil-A, we want to be racist.
Or Gab or Mines, they're making their money off fucking that shit. But by and large, most corporations,
the biggest ones,
yes, do not want to alienate anybody because they want everybody to buy their product.
Buy me, bitch.
And they don't want bad PR. So it's one of the few instances where capitalism is kind of alright, I guess.
No, alright, no, but certainly does it have that slight advantage every now and again? Kind of. What I will say is, again, these are holes. I am not going to sit here and act like this means it could never be enacted. I'm saying these are holes that I see, that he sees, and we're expressing those holes. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that there isn't praxis? Does that mean that there aren't people who can fill those holes? No. Mm-hmm. That simply means that
But we haven't seen them yet.
But we haven't seen it yet. Okay?
And, that's why we do want to have guests on and discuss these things.
That's why I would like to have Emerican Johnson for a discussion, because I would sit here quietly if he wants to sit here and explain to us. Mm-hmm. And y'all see I got a little window right here. Y'all can't see me point down, but it's down there. It's down there. I'll put a guest right here, and I will sit here quietly while you explain to me how we fill those holes. Okay? Because again,
we can try to do that with the chat, but
it's so interactive, y'all.
Too interactive,
right? And I think too, it's the first episode, okay? I think too, we need to build in how we're gonna talk to the chat, and maybe even do episodes that are straight hey, we did these topics, get your chat, get your I had these problems, get those together, let's fucking talk. We'll just have an episode where we talk about it. So we're still open to format and all that stuff. So don't think that they're gonna ignore us. No, we want to have these discussions with you guys. Otherwise, we would just sort of make these we would just kind of record these videos and keep it pushing.
Which we are gonna record some of them.
We are. But I think that one of the reasons we did want to do live streams and, you know, have the technical difficulties of dealing with encoders and all that shit, excuse me, I'm burping tonight, y'all. I'm burping all the time. Let's not play ourselves. Is that we want the interaction from the chat. So,
all right. So back to this. You know, he said, it's fundamentally different. Fundamentally different in the same way that a democracy and a dictatorship are different. Yet they still are both states and are referred to as such. They serve the same purpose, the governance of society, and they just organize it differently. Likewise, you're not police, and every other previous incarnation of police serve the same purpose and are thus still called police. This is one of my fundamental problems with anarchists. They pretend that the things they think of still aren't serving the same purpose as things already in existence. We hate states, but our workers' assemblies that handle the governance of society totally aren't states because we say so and we hate states. So then EJ accused me of semantic creepiness. And then this is, but I will say this before he gets into it because I know what he's going to say because it's not like we don't talk. This is a thing we all sort of we do. This is a leftist wide problem. I mean, I almost did kind of say something similar at the beginning of the show, but yeah, continue.
That was pretty much it. This is a leftist wide problem of we aren't just inventing language and philosophy. There are nearly 2 centuries of philosophical and ideological framework backing these ideas. So you're the one who's obtuse, not us. White time-wasting nonsense.
Yeah.
I have so many problems.
Right.
One, debating my ideology, never waste of time. Never. With no nigga.
Nope.
I don't give a shit how dumb. I don't give a shit how ignorant. I don't give a shit how unwilling to read. Never waste of time. Okay? The only way to perfect my ideas is to fight about them. Because someone's going to be willing to tell me what my holes are. And I got to be able, if I can't say, no, this plus that equals this, and if you do this, then that'll happen, and then this will happen, blah, blah, blah. If I can't do that, my ideas aren't worth defending.
And if your response to someone that doesn't seem to be understanding your ideology is, well, you need to go and read 200 years worth of philosophical and political theory about this before we can even have a discussion, you've lost. You have not convinced. That person is going to ignore you.
That person's going to go.
You're right. And they are never going to be turned over to your ideology. And let's face it, guys, especially, if you're talking left of center, we have numbers. But if you're talking about, anti-capitalists, we don't have numbers. I mean, I'm not even saying that we're anti-capitalist necessarily. We talked about that earlier. But communists, anarchists, you don't have the numbers.
And
you need to convince people. You need to win hearts and minds.
And you have to be able to articulate an ideology through your viewpoint. Mm-hmm. Lenin couldn't have gotten as far as he got, right? Mao is actually the better example. Mao basically rewrote the Communist Manifesto, called it the Red Book, and said, every Chinese citizen take one of these. Mm-hmm. You gotta have this. To this day, every Chinese citizen still has a Red Book in their house, right? He never would have said, well, you know what, fellow Chinese comrade?
You need to go read Marx.
You need to go read Marx. Lenin. You need to go have a conversation with Stalin. Nigga, you don't even know shit. Okay?
You need to read Engels.
You
read the Red Book that I wrote that tells you all you need to know.
If you want to convince people, you have to dummy it down. I don't mean dummy it down like, oh, people are ignorant, so you have to dummy it down. I mean that you have to be able to translate what Marx, who is an extraordinarily technical writer, you have to be able to translate that into not just plain speak that people can understand, but you have to be able to translate that into a modern society where the economic system that we know as capitalism has changed 5 to 9 times since the time he died.
And you have to translate it into things that you have to translate it into models that the everyday person is going to understand how it will affect their lives.
Agreed.
Because otherwise it's just theory. And, as the kids are all saying these days, we need praxis. You can't just have pure theory and, expect to get anywhere.
Can we skip this last part and just get to the video?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
I think.
Let's get to the video. Okay.
Yeah, okay, we can skip.
We're skipping this, guys. We're getting directly to this video, which is not because we decided let's stream
It's a still shot with audio.
let's stream on the least powerful computer because we can do it pretty.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we might try to figure out at some point how to stream off of my computer, which is
a desk.
Yeah, significantly more powerful. And can handle.
How dare you?
You can handle.
How dare you? He talking about a black girl's laptop.
Running a video.
Me and her do everything. Ooh!
She makes way more fancy videos than I do.
Ooh, I'm so tired of him.
Her videos have effects and animations. I just make dick jokes over video games. So,
if y'all are wondering, I have been, so before we get to this last part, because I'm just going to say it, I have been in like a creatively bankrupt space where I just don't have like, I have plenty of stuff on like half finished, but I'm just not there in terms of like, I want to make this. And it was suggested to me by a person wiser than me that, you know, you're a creative person because you've been unhappy a lot of your life and that was your outlet. And now you're like happier. And so that means that you might not stop, you just want to take credit. So now you don't feel the need to have that outlet as much because you don't feel as depressed or as downtrodden as you did before. So I take that into account. Don't think that this is the end of the Lady Columbia. I am here.
this is just the beginning.
I'm always gonna fucking be here because I'm here for you. I'm taking this throne for us. And that's it.
This is our throne right here. The Leftist Couch. Alright, let's...
I don't like hanging out with you.
Does it a lot, though.
Done.
For people who make it to adulthood and commit violent acts based on undiagnosed...
So we should preface this a little bit before we get into it.
This is his police... This is his police and military video, and he's talking about... He's talking about people that have mental illnesses that may end up committing crimes, or people that have mental illnesses and have committed crimes. And this isn't actually the main point, but I kind of wanted to preface it with this part before we get to the next part.
I don't like to cut people... I cut this. I don't like to cut people out of context. I like to give like the first couple of, maybe a paragraph before and a paragraph after if I was writing it, because it's important, to me it's always important to understand like the totality of an argument. I don't like sound.
And feel free to go watch the entirety.
Please watch the entirety of the video. I encourage that 100,000%. I'm not going to put the link in the description just because I'm not bullying him. I don't want to be accused of that. So it's part of his How Would Anarchy Work in the Real World series.
I believe part 3.
Part 3.
Treated mental illness will be substantially lower. It's a sad fact that some violent or predatory individuals may never be capable of entering back into society. But rather than abandoning these people, we must do our best to give them the best possible chance at recovery and reform, with the hopes of eventually re-entering society. In situations where re-entry does seem possible, care must be taken to monitor and assist these reformed individuals to preempt relapse or deception, and to ensure that the patient successfully emerges back into wider society. Reactionaries and counter-revolution.
I mean, I don't have too much problem with what he's saying here, but I'm curious as to what form the monitoring would take.
Same. I think,
And especially if we're talking about people that haven't already committed crimes, that are just mentally ill, and apparently they're being put into asylums first to be monitored. I'm not quite sure. I don't want to, go too much into this because I don't quite know what he's saying.
Right. I'll give him the credit of putting on the line, exactly what he believes the system would look like, etc., because that's hard.
Mm-hmm. But if what he's saying is that people who are mentally ill are going to be monitored before they've committed any crime, that seems a little authoritarian to me.
Slightly. I think it depends on the severity. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here. I think he's talking more like in terms of like sociopathic, psychopathic mental illness, as opposed to like, you have depression, let's stuff you into something.
Alright, so back it up a couple seconds and we'll get into his next point that we take a lot of issue with.
Oh, back it up or keep going?
Back it up a couple seconds because we kind of paused it after.
Emerges back into wider society. Reactionaries and counter-revolutionaries would be treated in a very similar manner. How we deal with former capitalists, fascists, and other such oppressors will be one of the great tests of anarchist society. Great care must be taken to treat them compassionately and humanely, giving them every opportunity to join our society as active and productive comrades, starting by treating them like any other comrade with special circumstances. Rather than ship deposed class enemies off to inhumane gulags or otherwise seek out revenge, they should be placed in reform centers where they are able to live in comfort and benefit from counseling and education, teaching them about the benefits of our new society. Some may never be willing to give up their abuses, and these die-hard oppressors would need to be secluded, perhaps indefinitely. But capitalists and reactionary...
And that, actually, that last bit was important because he said capitalist and reactionaries right after that.
You go first.
So, what he's saying here is that in this anarcho-communist society, any form of political dissent is going to land you in a re-education camp. And it might be comfortable, might be very nice.
A prison's still a prison.
Exactly. A golden cage is still a cage. So, any kind of capital, like fascist, I'm not going to cry for fascists, necessarily. Though I still don't know that we should be putting them all in re-education camps.
Continue with your point. The only thing I want to interject is that... No, actually, go on with your point.
But, like, first of all, let's think of the fact that we, as leftists, most of us, do not necessarily come from leftist families.
I'm sorry, because I lost it and it came back to me.
Most of us probably have a capitalist or two in our family somewhere. Might be an uncle or a grandfather.
A reactionary. I mean,
definitely reactionary.
My whole thing is, it's the Lenin thing. Almost every person Lenin had executed. Remember too that Lenin didn't sign those orders, so there are like a lot of records of him saying, "Yeah, kill these people."
Mm-hmm.
He branded a counter-revolutionary.
Right.
What stops us from? There's no federal body. Mm-hmm. You really only have to deal with the Confederation, and those states aren't going to like each other because look at the European Union. That's a confederation. What stops people from? What stops one commune from branding the other reactionary? What stops?
Well, that's a whole different story.
What stops individuals from branding each other reactionary?
Well, let's even just look at like within one commune.
Fine.
Like clearly fascists, clearly actual capitalists, not necessarily people that support capitalism. But
I'm sitting here wondering, why are those people alive?
I don't know.
No, you fought. No.
Well, you could also say...
Take down notice, whatever, no monetization, whatever, I don't give a shit. We're saying this. If the Great War is here, but if the Great War come, my nigga, they can't be allowed to survive. You know that. You know that. Point blank. Like, I don't care how that sounds. Like, their families, because they become focal points for counter-revolution. You don't think there are going to be people in some bullshit? They're going to be like, we'll pretend we're a commune, but really we're going to break Bill Gates out of the communist rest home or the fucking capitalist rest home. They become focal points for counter-revolution. In that way, and this is why I say I borrow from everybody. In that way, you got to be looking at what Stalin and Lenin is doing. That's all I'm saying. Only in that, though. Only in that.
Oh, so I don't know how far down the revolutionary path I want to go with you there, darling, but.
Not all dissenters, but them capitalists who own the means of production, you already know it.
And the fascists. But again,
to me, just the leaders, because them little ones, they gonna see.
But so, the question becomes: who are you calling a counter-revolutionary? Who are you calling a fascist? I mean,
yeah, because sometimes we
bandy that word around. I'm guilty of it too. We bandy that word around to people who probably aren't fascist. They might be fascist adjacent.
I'll call you fascist. Quick.
Whatever, but, what's a counter-revolutionary? What's a capitalist? Is a capitalist only someone that actually owned means of production, or is a capitalist somebody that was, like, a manager? Like, is a capitalist the petite bourgeoisie, Like,
and what body, in that period between the establishment, in the period between the revolution and the establishment of the commune, who gonna sit there and be governing enough to be like, oh, you shouldn't have killed blah 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 because they were not really a counter-revolutionary. They got killed who fuck I alone.
But so we are now arguing for keeping pretty much seemingly all political dissenters, everyone who's against the anarchist world order, because that's what a counter-revolutionary is. It's any political dissent. If you are against the current anarchist political order, you are now a counter-revolutionary, you're a dissenter.
You're a reactionary.
All of you are, everyone who doesn't fit into whatever specific commune's brand of
you going into the re-education camp.
You're going to the re-education camp, and if you aren't at some point convinced that anarchism of this particular variety is the good thing, is the future, then you're staying in there forever.
To their satisfaction, because if it, let's say for sake of argument, right, not saying this would happen, but let's say for sake of argument, it was anarcho-capitalists that won the revolution.
Oh no.
And they branded every anarcho-communist a reactionary. And this is their model. They said, okay, this works. We're not killing them, we're not putting them in gulags, right? Even if you're still an anarchist, you're a reactionary. And again, I'm telling you, my niggas, the danger is not like, oh, the state might brand me a counter-revolutionary. The danger is your neighbor. You didn't pick up the trash. Nigga, you a counter-revolutionary. The danger is not in the state as much as it is in random-ass people who want to fuck you over because they perceive you as fucking them over.
Look at the Salem witch trials.
Look at East Bloc Germany. People told the fucking Stasi all kinds of shit about their neighbors because they fucking hated their neighbors.
But again, let's be very clear about what we're talking about here. You are advocating for what are essentially comfy gulags.
Yep.
That you're going to keep some people in forever. And that those people are any political dissenters that do not at some point convince you that they are convinced.
Let's be generous to this, because this is a very radical thing he's saying. Let's be super generous to this. Let's say he's talking about only people on the right and people who are on the means of production.
The right, period?
The right.
So anywhere.
Let's say from conservative.
Okay.
To fascist.
Okay. So now, like, fucking, we're putting
gun nuts into re-education camps.
We're putting, like, you know, we're putting your uncle into.
We're putting your crazy uncle. Your
crazy Republican uncle.
We're putting your conspiracy theory believing cousin into the re-education camp.
And if they're not convinced, they're going to stay there forever. Now, my problem with, there's a lot of problems with this, but, like, my problem with this from the point of view of a leftist who wants to convince people of leftism, of leftist ideology, is we currently have a system where you are allowed to be a political dissenter of any flavor.
Because we literally are.
Yes.
We, all of us.
You are.
You are.
Emerican Johnson is. Everybody in this chat is. We're all political dissenters. And so now you want to convince people that a better system is one where there are no political dissenters. They are all put into comfy gulags until they either toe the party line or they stay there forever.
And it speaks to, like, the weakness of this system is so great, right?
It cannot handle dissent.
That no dissent can be allowed. No dissent. Okay? None. Remember, we have a historical example of this. The founding fathers of this country were frightened by the idea that freedom of speech was going to destroy the United States. They passed, the founding generation, kind of the middle of the founding generation, passed the Alien Sedition Act, which allowed you to lock up journalists, which allowed you to lock up anybody who at all preached against what could be interpreted as the downfall of the state. We've used that law like 18 times in the whole history of the country. Okay?
Okay, so
we right now, have we murdered political dissenters? You fucking right we have. Okay? Have we locked up political dissenters? You fucking right we have. But ultimately, the government don't try to catch everybody. Okay? And you can't just call the FBI and say, I think my neighbor's a political dissenter. Otherwise, my neighbors on this side would have called the FBI on me a minute ago. But you can't just call the FBI and be like, oh, I think this person's a political dissenter. But what mechanism are you using to decide who is a political dissenter? But go ahead with the chat. I want to hear what they think. Because I
think this is the end of what we got. I don't think the last few seconds of this are terribly important. So this is basically now. Let's just,
Yeah, so we're going to deal with the chat for the rest of the show, and then
which won't be too long.
Which won't be super long, because we've actually gone longer than we anticipated.
Way longer.
An hour longer.
So, longer than that, because we're at like 2:40 or something like that.
Okay.
The 40 minutes.
Read the damn chat.
All right. So anarchists want to get rid of all prisons except re-education camps, apparently, which are prisons.
Honey, if you're talking about keeping somebody locked up forever, you're talking about if it's like you can volunteer to go into the re-education camp, that's one thing, right? If you're saying that you have to because of your ideology, and that's what the revolutions say, honey, that's a prison, honey.
So Adam Rainstomper says, no, it can't. That's the whole point. This is in reply to my saying that they would still have the monopoly on force. It would not have the monopoly on force in any sense. Well, maybe not your version of anarchy, but Emerican Johnson's, they do. And that's what we're talking about here. So, absolutely, you want to educate us. You want to send us to somewhere better, a better series on how anarchism would work. But in Emerican Johnson's example, the commune, the workers' council, has the monopoly on force. It says they are accountable to the entire community and instantly recallable. Yeah, sure, but
right. That's not what he says.
But that's not. Well, no.
What?
That is what he says. I think maybe I don't know. But they're accountable to the entire community, instantly recallable. But the community is the government. So if the government, which is the community, which is the direct democracy, decides that they want to lock somebody up or prevent somebody from working somewhere as a whole through a direct democratic vote, they now have the monopoly on force.
Mm-hmm.
Like, against a minority. Like, that's just how this works. The only function they serve that is even similar to the police is to resolve interpersonal disputes and protect the innocent. They're expected to specialize in it, but don't have the monopoly on it. I mean, they do.
But you have to give them that see, okay, here's the problem, too. At the root of it, power is coercive. No matter who wields it, what type of system you wield it in, all power is the ability to make someone do something they don't want to do.
Sure. So,
it wouldn't matter if it was a bunch of anarchists saying, well, Phil's beating his wife, we gotta send the cops over there. You're still stopping Phil from doing what he wants to be his wife. So you're stopping him from doing what he wants to do. You're using coercion to do that. Even if it wasn't a police. Let's say, fuck the police. Right? I mean that in all forms. Let's say you had to act as the police. The whole commune is trained, and you have to act as the police. You're still the fucking police when you go to Phil's house.
And that kind of boils over into some random geek's point. What is going to stop the cops today if they did something and the government body is not holding them accountable? What are the citizens' recourse? Very little. But in Emerican Johnson's example, what's going to stop the emergency response force if they did something and the government body, which is the people, is not holding them responsible? Because if they don't want to stop Phil from beating his wife because there's a bunch of misogynists in this society,
fine,
then they're just like, oh, we're cool with Phil. He can do what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, direct democracy isn't a solution to everything.
No, it's
and then at that point, there's no recourse. Like, for Phil's wife, there's no recourse because the people have spoken.
Except run to the next commune and pray they're not misogynists.
With anarchism, with direct democracy, everyone is accountable to everyone else. Well, no, everyone's accountable to the majority.
Right.
It will still be work in progress. Yeah.
Honey, all of them will be.
Everything's a work in. All governments are a work in progress. like they wouldn't be allowed to do anything that no one else is allowed to do. I mean, if talking about the police, they're gonna have to be like, if they're gonna get a warrant to search your house to find evidence of a crime.
Well,
you can't Joe Average off the street. Are you saying that in an anarchist society, Joe Average off the street can say, "Hey, I want a warrant for this person's house to search it"? No, of course not. That's insane. So yeah.
Which, if it is, I mean, there's no way. There is just no way to enforce that. And where do you even get a fucking warrant from?
Social capital will be a problem in anarchism. Again, work in progress, not an end goal. Okay, that's fair.
Cool. That's fair.
Woke brands are a tiny little concession that has very little, if any, substantive power to change the material conditions that matter in people's lives. I agree.
I don't disagree with that.
It is a tiny concession.
It is. But ultimately, that small concession
is better than nothing.
Is still better than nada.
Right.
And it allows at least a groundwork. At least, for example, our enemies, right? The people we all, from Emerican Johnson, him, me, everybody, view as our opponents, right? They're all frightened by the idea of woke brands. They all react terribly. They go around smashing their sneakers and fucking blowing up their razors and doing whatever because a brand said something quasi-woke. That's not just a small concession. That produced a reaction we want. I want them to be afraid. Not only are they afraid, but they think that this is the majority. They think that this is the status quo, that feminism, that trans rights, that accepting human beings for who they are and treating them with basic human dignity is the standard.
And now that they're rebels and they're the oppressed minority, these poor whites, so whatever.
It's a triple-edged sword, Bugles.
Yeah, it is a small concession. Absolutely.
It is. I agree with that.
But
it does.
It's
but
something.
It does produce some reactions that might be favorable to us.
Don't forget, you and everyone else is part of the process of filling in these holes. Everyone is a part of the process if they want to. Direct democracy.
I'm not saying I'm not a part of that process, but what I am saying is I, as a brown person, am not enthused about the idea of a white majority country that I live in, that I know that my ancestors are from, having direct democratic power. Because who said that? Because not everybody is you, some random geek. Not everybody is Adam Rainstomper. Not everybody are the thoughtful people in our chat who are willing to have this conversation with us. Not everybody is Emerican Johnson. I don't think that Emerican Johnson is out here going to try to really fuck me over. But not everybody is us. And in every society, you who know the ideology, agree with it, are likely a small percentage of that society. Most people either don't give a shit about the ideology and only care about whether the shit worked for them or not, or people who don't fucking agree with you. It's giving them power. I like to describe direct democracy like this, right? I always tell people like this. Do you want Davis Arini to have equal... No! Do you want Davis Arini to have equal political power to you? What about Sargon of Akkad? What about Stefan Molyneux? Because in any direct democracy, they have not just as much power as you. Because of their reach and influence, they have more power than you. They have a greater power to influence people than you. In fact, they are more likely to get their edicts, their ideas put into law than you or me or him or Emerican Johnson. Because they have a greater base of power. So,
look at the subs for all the big right-wing shitlord YouTubers. Sargon, Dave Rubin, Count Dankula, like all these jackoffs. Then look at the subs of the big lefty YouTubers. Add them all up. Do you want direct democracy now? I don't think you do.
Do you want...
Now I'm sure like some random geek will probably say, no, we need to educate people first. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, agreed.
And then yeah, maybe at some point in the future we can have direct democracy, though I still think to do direct democracy and have it be an effective means of governance, you really need to have small states.
I think that
I just don't think that's going to happen. Like, I don't think it's...
I think that idea is as passé as John Adams was when he wrote the shit.
You can't run a nation of 300 million people on direct democracy. And I don't think we're going to get to the point where we're all living in small communes. I just don't think it's practical. I think it's pragmatic.
I don't think that...
And I could be wrong.
I don't necessarily think that you can't do it. I think it depends on how you structure administrative districts. I think it depends on how you educate your population. I think that ultimately it depends a lot on this. I think, yeah, of course it depends on the size of your polity. Do I think it's possible? I think anything is fucking possible.
And
is it probable? Probably not.
I had an argument with somebody else, and I think it was like in relation to some of Emerican Johnson stuff, where he said like the ideal size for a commune was like 10,000 people or thereabouts. And I said, what are you going to do about New York City? Like, are you going to have like all these little tiny communes?
The population of New York is 8.5 million.
Within the city, like, so there are going to be all these little individual communes, like of 10,000 people here and there. You know, maybe you get bigger ones, but still maybe 100,000 at best. And then what happens when like you work in Manhattan and you live in Brooklyn? So you have to go to work up in Manhattan, and then maybe you're going to say like you're just going to work in your commune. But like at some point you're probably going to want to leave your commune to some other part of the city to go to Central Park or to go to fucking whatever you want to do. You want to go to a restaurant in Manhattan or whatever. What happens if you get raped in a different commune? Like you're walking back to the subway from a restaurant in a different commune. So now who prosecutes that crime? Who do you call? Like, and then is if they do catch the guy, is he going to be tried in your commune, or is he going to be tried in the commune where he lives, or is he going to be tried in the commune where he?
I mean, honestly, the answer to that question is English common law, right? You are tried in the place where the crime is committed.
And you have no idea what that commune's laws are going to be like. They could be completely different than the place that you're from.
Well, and two, I think that this is why I'm rather, if I'm going to go for anarchism, it's got to be with the Constitution, because at the very least, then you know, like, okay, the laws are the same, the laws, you know, that your personhood is the same, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, so some random geek says, said a lot of things, but I'm going to pick out the ones I like. Well, the ones I think are interesting to talk about. Anarchism is anti-authoritarian. Whatever anarchists do, it has to be anti-authoritarian. That's bullshit. I'm sorry. You can't just define your way out of authoritarianism. If you are doing something that is authoritarian, you're authoritarian, whether you call yourself an anarchist or not. Now, you can say that Emerican Johnson, by what he's talking about, is not a true anarchist. You know, because he's talking about doing things that are authoritarian, he's not a true anarchist. You can take that route if you want, but he is proposing things that are authoritarian. So, if you want to call Emerican Johnson not an anarchist, I'm okay with that, but you can't just say because he's an anarchist, he calls himself an anarchist, he just can't do anything authoritarian. It's impossible.
Yeah, the ideology, first of all, we know, we have every example from every society on earth that even if an ideology that you base a country on or a state on is in and of itself anti-authoritarian, it still acts authoritarian. Liberalism is anti-slavery. It is by its very nature an anti-slave ideology. Everything that Locke wrote was about anti-slavery. Was he still invested in the slave trade? Yes. Was the United States, that was based upon his ideology, so much so that he wrote the South Carolina Constitution, was it still a slave state? Yes, it was. Right? But again, liberalism is inherently and is anti-slavery. That doesn't mean it didn't practice slavery. Just because an ideology purports to be anti-authoritarian doesn't mean that people within that ideology who get power won't act in ways that are authoritarian.
So, some random geek says, hey, I am an anarchist living in a capitalist liberalist society. Should I be in a re-education camp by your logic here? No, not by my logic.
No,
I don't want re-education.
No, we don't want that. That's what he proposes.
Right. like, he proposes that in his anarchist society for dissenters. So I'm just saying, like, if we were doing that to our dissenters, like, that would be bad. Like, we shouldn't do that at all.
No. No.
But no, I don't want re-education camps for anybody.
I'm for it. Listen, I'm for an ideology where, you know, for the most part, conservatives still exist. Right? People who don't agree with me exist. There are still some stray fascists in the world. I can't stop every human from believing in horrible shit. Right? If I can stop the vast majority, I've done my fucking job. But I can't stop every human from not being a fascist. And as far as I'm concerned, socialism, communism, and even anarcho-communism could all survive if there were people who dissented in it. I don't know why he would even act as if that wasn't the case.
I don't know. Like, if you believe in your ideology and your system of governance, you shouldn't need to put people in re-education camps. People, by virtue, first of all, why would you need education camps when they're living in that society? They're going to see those benefits. Like, they live there. Right.
They don't need to be re-educated. They're going to be inculcated by virtue of living there. So, this is an unnecessary... Be upset with Emerican Johnson because he's adding unnecessary steps.
So, by the way, criminal anarchy is a thing in my state, Washington State, and 12 other states. I'm not familiar with this law. I kind of would guess that it's not being an anarchist.
But it's not criminal anarchism, right? You're not saying that the state bans anarchism.
We will look into that.
I will look into.
Come back to that.
Do me a favor. Some random geek. Do me a favor. And anyone in the chat, I want you to feel free. I'm going to try to rig up Twitter to this too at some point. But do me a favor. If you have any other questions or anything else that you want answered in like a chat, you know, a show we do the chat, please send them to me at the Lady Columbia or send them to the Great Pirate Solomon at GPS Solomon. At GP Solomon, sorry. He has a dumb name.
Great Pirate Solomon didn't fit.
Please do, so that we can, you know, if we say, oh, we don't know, you know, pack that, just copy paste that and put it in a tweet. I don't care, you know, DM, whatever you want to do, so that we can at least look it up and answer you later.
Right. My younger brother is a Trump voter, Sargon follower, and a Gamergator. I think he should be re-educated, but that may just be me. As Dave Rubin would say, I agree with that. But I don't think he should be in a re-education camp.
But do you think...
I don't think he should be in a gilded prison.
But do you think that the state should haul him off and educate him?
Right. And maybe you do. I don't know.
Or do you think that...
But I don't.
I should have a place where I can take my brother and say, hey, let's go to this place, let's learn about some new shit. Mm-hmm. Right? Because right now, ain't nobody forced to go to the Anarchist Media Center in Berkeley. Alright? You can go there voluntarily. By the way, if you are in Berkeley and you're near UC Berkeley, do go to the Anarchist Media Center. They are very nice people who will talk to you a lot about anarchism, and you will learn quite a bit. I appreciate them. I really like them. Go check it out.
I think the Founding Fathers kind of suck. I mean, I'd mostly agree.
Nigga, of course they sucked! I'm black!
Mm-hmm. Again, criminal anarchy is the thing. Again, we'll have to look into that.
Honey, we'll do. Again, tweet it to me so I remember, and then I can deal with that.
There are people calling ICE on their neighbors. I'm going to assume this is in response to what you were saying about, you know, people working.
Right, but that doesn't.
Yeah, and that'll still happen.
Yeah.
That's bad, and it would be bad in American Johnson.
That's a horrible fucking thing that is being fucking perpetuated by a system that doesn't give a shit about immigrants, my nigga. And that's a terrible fucking thing. Do I want that? You fucking right, I want that change. I don't want people calling their fucking neighbors on ICE, but that's more illustrative of our point than it is of yours. Because what you're saying is, yeah, people can be fucking malicious, and if there is a system whereby they can be locked away based upon what they believe or what have you, people will fucking use it.
Anarchism is not a monolith, just how feminism is not a monolith. Yeah, sure.
Agreed, honey, agreed.
I don't think everybody's Emerican Johnson.
Same.
Wait, are we going to be okay with someone beating up their partner? No. Well, you aren't, and I'm not, and she's not. But there are people that are okay with that. They exist. Like, so...
And they live in polities.
Right. Why does he have to make a situation where a commune is okay with wife beating to prove that EJ's anarchism won't work? I mean, I don't have to make that situation. There are already places, there are already polities, there are already places that are okay with these things. Those places are still going to exist, whether they're anarchist communes or capitalist, liberalist societies.
The United States of America will not. Many states in this country don't have the boyfriend laws, which bar you from owning a gun if you've ever been convicted of domestic violence. There are states where you can be convicted of domestic violence and own a gun. So let's not sit here and pretend like, oh, we're bringing up some esoteric ass example from nowhere. This is really happening right this second.
I don't want to live in a commune where you're okay with partner beating. That's why I'm outspoken against Laura Lie Bailey. Not super familiar with that situation. I remember.
I'm not super familiar, honey. I try to listen. I stay out of other people's drama. All right, less involve me. I don't deal with other people's drama because it's drama. And now, if the shit about the cause, then you know I'm there. But if the shit about people's personal shit, I don't get into it. I didn't interact with Laura Lie Bailey. I don't know nothing about it.
So Adam Rainstomper says, my point was that you called it an advantage of capitalism about the woke brands.
I said slight. I said slight on purpose.
And I was challenging that. It creates the very problem it purports to solve. Within capitalism, a brand should be woke like ice water in hell is refreshing. In that context, it sort of helps, but you don't have to be in hell to access ice water. Yeah, but we were bringing it up in a situation where that problem wasn't addressed in a moneyless anarcho-communist society, because social capital, popularity, charisma, being an ideologue, being a good rhetoricist can still...
Where they hold the value. Where those things are the marker whereby people will listen to you, and because because people will listen to you, they will enact your policies.
And some random geek, I think, probably replying to that, popularity will still be a problem that I do not have an answer for. Yeah, I don't think I said they would be rich people in anarchism. Maybe I did. Maybe I made a mistake. I don't know. Maybe you did.
Maybe I fucked up, y'all. I'm sorry.
Anarchism is about decentralization and free association. Yes, there will be lots of little communes in New York. And yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm not sold on decentralization. So that's probably one of my big problems with anarchism. I look forward to a Star Trek future where we have a one world government.
I am too for the global federation of states. I like the idea of global federalism. But we're not sitting here saying this is the end point, our lie, this is what we believe is the absolute end. Humans will continue to evolve, and they'll continue to evolve their political views, and they'll gain levels of maturity, and they'll be able to do things that they haven't been able to do before. So it's not to say that this is not, this couldn't come to pass. This is simply saying that, okay, this is what you were proposed, these are the issues we see with it.
People can be malicious is not an argument against anarchism.
I'm not arguing against anarchism. I'm arguing specifically against putting people into re-education camps in which this man, who is an anarchist, who is explaining his view of how anarchism works in the real world, is advocating for. That is not a slight against all forms of anarchism.
People have the capacity to be horrible, therefore we should have a state made up of people, give people more centralized power. Well, first of all, we disagree that at least what Emerican Johnson is proposing is not still a state. It's still a state, at least in my opinion. He can call it not a state, but it's still a state as far as I'm concerned.
If it meets all the criteria that people say, or that most political scientists would say comprise a state, so I'm going to have to say that it's a state.
Yeah. But we should have a state that gives people more centralized power. Not necessarily. I'm certainly for more accountability and more transparency, and I don't necessarily have a problem with because another issue that I've talked to a couple of anarchists about before is what happens if in this direct democracy that you've created, what happens if the people start to decide that they're too lazy to want to keep voting on everything, and they just say, well, let's just elect people to vote for it, to make our decisions for us, and we just end up right back where we were.
Power coalesces.
Right.
It centralizes.
And in any direct democracy, if the people are the ultimate will, then at any time the form of government can change, unless you have a constitution. But then we
even still, in theory, this is clear in theory because the American people never tried it. In theory, if the American people said tomorrow we want to elect someone who is emperor of the United States, we don't give a shit what the Constitution says. We don't give a shit about none of that. We'll push us through the primaries. We'll push him through the general election, and he will be president because that is the office in which the Constitution grants him. But we are granting him the power of emperor. We will ignore all constitutional. We will ignore all of Congress's fucking laws, and we will only do what the emperor says. There's not much we can do about that.
Alright, so I think we're going to end it here because we've been going for over 3 hours. And that was about the end of the chat. There might be a few more responses. I do appreciate everyone that was in the chat.
Thank you guys.
I've never had this much, viewer interaction, so that was fun. I can agree on everything, but I hope I didn't come off disrespectful. 1 or 2 times I may have been a little snippy, but
that's my baby. He's snippy to me.
I do want this to be not a debate, whether it's with the chat or with a live guest. I want this to be discussions.
And honey.
And sometimes tempers get a little hot or whatever. But
honey, listen. We have had the air conditioning on low. We're both hot. I think he has on 2 shirts.
I do.
I have on a sweater. Shit's getting hot up in here. And we're both hungry. So I will say this. I enjoy having this discussion. This was super fun. I enjoyed the interaction. I enjoyed that, we have opposing views. We got to talk about it. We got to fucking go out, we got to at least have that discussion back and forth, and we got to, invigorate ourselves with that discussion. And we got everybody thinking, well, okay, they're wrong about this, and they're wrong about that, and what about this, and what about that? That's what I want. I want you to be thinking about your ideology. I want you to be prepared to defend it. I want you to have those questions, those responses. I do not want people to just say to me, go read this. And I'm so proud of everyone who, engaged with us instead of just saying, well, you should just go read this person and be done. Just go read some Chomsky and you're good. So I appreciate that. We will be back. I am, like I said, elated. This was great, and I love you. Mwah.
I have been the Great Pirate Solomon.
He has. All right.
And
so
she has been Lady Columbia.
Don't talk to me, motherfucker. Because he's white and he's man.
And we are on the Leftist Couch.
So, I will be seeing you soon. Good night, good morning, and good afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.